Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another round of the UKSimRacing community's GT3 League Season 11, as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. And today marks round number 7 of 9, and with our first endurance race round of the season. And what better venue to play host to our first 90-minute test of racing than the Circuit des 24 Heures du Mans, known more colloquially as the Le Mans Circuit, and in a previous life known as the Circuit de la Sarthe. This circuit, located in northern France, is a circuit that needs no introduction. Having recently celebrated its centenary of the 24 Hours of Le Mans race, where year in, year out, motorsport teams around the world come to the venerable tarmac in order to compete for the right to be considered the kings of endurance. This is a circuit that is steeped in history and is rich within the veins of motorsport. Indeed, if you haven't been to this European mecca of motorsport, we definitely recommend you do so, for the simple reason it is a circuit where dreams have been made and manufacturers have come to life and gained their headlines throughout the years. Whether it be Ferrari, Ford, or in more recent years Toyota, and most recently a Ferrari, it is a circuit that puts machine and man to the ultimate test, with over 80% of lap being full throttle. Reliability on parts is absolutely critical around here, as goes in hand as well driver's pace, and come the end of it all, everyone will be looking to walk away the victor and say that they were the winner of the 24 Hour of Le Mans. Well, today it'll be the 90-minute of Le Mans as we get ready to go racing here for what is expected to be a thrilling round of racing action, indeed one that could prove very critical in the respective drivers and teams championships. But before we get into all the details around that and plenty more, we welcome you to this live broadcast official on the UKSimRacing YouTube channel. If you go to youtube.com and search for UKSimRacing or UKSR, you can tune in there, and make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're not already, to stay up to date with all the latest broadcasts and post-race highlight reels and plenty more media we have planned for the remainder of 2023 and onwards as we go from strength to strength. And we welcome you all. If you're in the YouTube chat right now, hello to you all. I can see a good number of you in there. But as we get ready to go racing, well, we'll talk a little bit about our schedule in due course. But all this racing action is being brought to you live in the commentary booth. You do have myself, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain, depending on what media you follow me on, and I'll bring you racing action for the entirety of the season. Well, speaking of the season, let's give you a recap of the calendar thus far and what still lies in wait. And now we are firmly into the final third of the championship. We started off all the way back on the 25th of June in Japan at the Fuji International Speedway Circuit. There in the footfalls of Mount Fuji, we got to see plenty of battle in action right at the front of the field. It was the classic battle between Sam Sherwood and Erik Røseth that took the headlines. Then round number 2, we made our way to Spain for a double header, starting off the Circuito de Jerez, and at a circuit that our drivers have become thoroughly acquainted with its introduction in Season 10 of the GT3 League. On the 2nd of July there, it was all about the battles up and down the field, and indeed up there we saw in Spain the Porsche 992 drivers across the classes absolutely enjoying the flying corners of the Spanish circuit. Then around number 3, we made our way to Motorland Aragon, and at the front of the field at the second Spanish circuit in Alcanda, recently introduced the iRacing platform. It was all about the close-knit battle between our elite drivers, with Reece Saunders coming out on top there in the Mercedes AMG for team at year 1, and then as we made our way, in fact it was the BMW M4 to correct myself there, and then after the 9th of July we made our way to the Virginia International Raceway for what was the 16th of July for round number 4, and concluding the first half of our season, the American circuit there proving it's just as important to stay on the tarmac as it is about having the outright pace for consistency proving key. Then we had our break fortnight before we returned on what's the 6th of August to the Road Atlanta round, the roller coaster ride round if you will, in round number 5, and well, we got to see there plenty more battling action up and down the field, with a strike back in the elite class for Håkon Grebstad, taking the fight back to his rival Erik Røseth, and of course defending champion Grebstad looking to try and defend his crown from Season 10. Then last time out we made our way back to Spain for our final round on the Spanish terrain, and that was at the Circuit de Barcelona Catalonia in round number 6, and well, there we got to see in what was the AM class our first double winner in the AM class, Simon Andre Livingston, and the Racing Lab Esports AM driver really bringing to life what has been an aspiration to take some major points after we had seen 5 different winners in the AM class over the season. And that was on the 13th of August, and today is round number 7 in France at Le Mans Circuit, and indeed it's the 20th of August today, and after today we've got 2 rounds remaining, and they're both in Australia. Indeed, it's an Australian doubleheader to wrap up the season, and we start off down under with round number 8 at the Phillip Island Grand Prix Circuit, and there we'll get to see our drivers become acquainted with a circuit. It is very tricky at the best parts of times, with sweeping corners and extended straights playing a great providence for our GT3 class machines to really take the circuit in their stride. That'll be on the 27th of August, and our final final sprint race round of the season. And then round 9 of 9, we'll see our drivers make the way to Mount Ulu, also known as Bathurst, but we know it as Mount Panorama, for the 3rd of September endurance race finale. And there it'll be just as much about becoming champion as it will be about becoming king of the mountain. And if you do become the king of the mountain, could that be the key to you unlocking your championship crown? We'll have to wait and see. Indeed, all the championships are still wide open. But coming on to our circuit for today then. It's the circuit that's 24-hour du Mans, and we're running the current layout of the circuit as it is in the real world. Located near the city of Le Mans in the Sarthe region of the state of Pays de Loire in France. This is a circuit which spans just over what is 8.4 miles, and with its distance and 33 corners, as we can see from the iRacing.com circuit map provided to us. And thank you to iRacing for their brilliant simulator and the circuit maps that come with it. It is a circuit which is staggeringly long, and in particular for the fact it has multiple extended straightaways. Indeed, if you were to look at a picture of the original layout of this circuit when it opened all those years ago, you'll see it was a very different beast back then compared to how it is now. But with the circuit being more refined to date, as our drivers make the way on around across the start-finish line, they'll charge the way up through Dunlop Curve at turns number 1 and into the chicane at turns 2 and 3. Exiting the chicane there, it's an uphill rise over the hill at turn number 4 and a downhill charge into the S's at turns 5, 6 and 7, where it's all about hooking up turns 6 and 7 in particular, and a crucial area there we could see a few incidents in the race where turns 6 and 7 so easy to get it wrong as you try to go flat out up towards Tetridge at turn number 8. There the sweeping right-hander, which has proven to be the penalty gathering spot for many a driver over years on the simulator in the real world, where drivers are expected to slow down if they run wide, but get it right out of Tetridge and the kink of 9. They'll make the way onto the Mulsanne straight, now broken up into 3 distinct parts, given the fact that previously it was one elongated straight, albeit due to safety concerns and high downforce machines, in particular the prototypes that used to race here, gaining flight if they picked up too much air underneath the car with the bumps in the road. Our drivers will make the way down the 3-part Mulsanne straight, interspersed by 2 chicanes, with the first chicane at turn number 11 being a bit more open and flexible compared to the second chicane at turn number 12, but key overtaking spots. Now our drivers will make the way down towards Mulsanne corner at turns 14 and 15 through the sharp right angle corner, preceded by a trail braking zone into a curve. A very tricky corner to get right on the brakes, but get it right and then you'll pick up all the speed and the charge down towards Indianapolis at turns 18 and 19. There, heading into the braking zone, it's all about carrying all the confidence and being heavy on the brakes into 19, where you make your way out and into Arnage corner at turn number 20. The sharp right-hand, right-angle corner perhaps being the hardest corner on the circuit to get right. Get it right, however, and you'll find your way up towards the Porsche curves in a hurry. Get it wrong, and you may make haste into the tyre barrier on the exit of the corner. Then heading up towards the Porsche curves, we'll see our drivers float into turns 23 through to 26, where it's about the right into double left-right combination. We're going to expect plenty of rotation on cars, particularly our Porsches, and get it right there. And our drivers will then have to deal with the Corvette curves at turns 27 through to 29, where it's a sharp switch back into turn number 27, which again can prove many difficulties. Indeed, some of you may remember Michael Fassbender getting it wrong in the centenary of the 24-hour Le Mans this year, where the car went wide coming out of the corner and then into the inside wall with the oversteer that was picked up. We're hoping none of our drivers managed to achieve that today and instead focus on keeping on the tarmac as they make their way up towards the Ford chicanes to complete the lap, turns 30 through to 33, where it's a wind down there to some of the slidest corner combinations on the circuit, and they'll complete the lap and do it all over again. So plenty of straight and plenty of corner variety intermingled in there, and well, speaking of variety, let's take you through our rules very quickly. And as we can see, car setup-wise, drivers are not permitted to change their car without penalty at any point during the season. And I'm pleased to say there's no car changes coming in effect today. Fuel load-wise, they'll be restricted to 50% for all races. So even today, even though it is a longer race, we're seeing the same fuel tanks go into the car. Qualifying-wise, a lone qualifying format shall be used. It's 10 minutes in duration, and all our drivers have 10 minutes to set their best possible time before they go to the grid for our race. Speaking of which, in general, race-wise, we'll be seeing that the races commence by a double-file rolling start. This is the tradition of the UKSimRacing GT3 League, and the starting zone has been declared as being out of the final corner and all the way up to the midpoint of the start-finish straight. There are no mandatory pit stop requirements, which means our drivers must choose to pit at their own doing, and indeed that does mean that things will be wide open on the strategy. But if we do see our drivers come into the pits not for necessarily a pit stop to put fuel and tyres on the car, we may be seeing them come in to take a repair, of which they've got one fast repair available, and the race journey shall be conducted post-race. Meanwhile, if we do expect drive-through penalties, they will be accrued if our drivers are able to pick up 25 or more instant points, but hopefully we don't see too many of those. That's enough rules, regulation, everything in between. You're all here for the racing. Well, let's head back to our live pictures and take you through our schedule for today. Times in British Summertime, that's BST, or Universal Coordinated Time +1, UTC +1. And as we can see, in just under 5 minutes' time, we're going into our qualifying session. 10 minutes in duration equates into what is 2 fast laps around here, and it could really shake up the qualifying order given the fact but our drivers do not have plenty of time to get a good lap on the board. After which we take a 5-minute breather in the build-up to our race for tonight, the 90 minutes endurance race, and that will be going to the grid at 8:15. So we're not too far away from going racing, ladies and gentlemen. And with the conditions that we currently have at the circuit being relatively warm, we're 22-degree ambient temperature and 36-degree track temperature. It's clear skies over the circuit. Well, you would imagine here that could prove to be very important with regards to tyre degradation. And one driver will be focusing on nailing it right from the outset all the way through to the conclusion today. You see him making his way on through the Porsche curves into the Corvette curves currently. It's Håkon Grebstad from Norway, the defending elite champion for Ignition Motorsport in the BMW M4. And why is he perhaps the big man for tonight, the one we're keeping our eyes on? Well, we are expecting that whilst it has been a Porsche 992 dominant season, with the Porsche arriving on the simulator platform of iRacing as of this season, and indeed really taking the field by storm, the BMW M4 is given its own in relative regards, particularly when it comes to straight line speed and power circuits. And well, this is a circuit that's widely regarded as a power circuit first and foremost over a single lap, and we could see the BMW M4 absolutely fly away. Grebstad will be looking to do that with the absence of championship rival Erik Røseth currently, but Røseth's not on the grid, and then Grebstad has the ample opportunity to try and accrue the maximum possible points. That will be his minimum target. But still, it's not just about the BMW M4s. We also have to look to the likes of the Ferrari 488 Evos. And McGregor here, the second place Pro Championship driver right now. He's fallen out to lead the championship by a single point to Casper Tunstead, with Tunstead bringing home that second place finish in Spain last week. And Aaron McGregor right now will be priding himself on the fact that Ferrari should be phenomenal on the straights. And we talk time and time again about the fact that Ferrari does not have straight line speed acceleration to be able to use its top speed that it has in 6th gear, unless you've got an incredibly long straight. Well, as you can see here from the pictures, we have multiple incredibly long straights going down the Mulsanne parts 1 through to 3, and also the run down towards Indianapolis and the run to the Porsche curves, and that is where the Ferrari will be able to bring its beastly power to life, and we'll hear that V8 engine absolutely roar with its turbo as well in the Ferrari, and the 488 Evo could do very well here. But as McGregor makes his way on down, and will currently Casper Tunstead, I do believe, not out on circuit, in fact in the pit lane, not putting any practice time in currently, and we look forward to seeing how they get on with a 4-way fight on the Pro Class Championship at the moment. We made mention to the fact in the elite class, it's really the battle between championship leader Erik Røseth and Håkon Grebstad, the defending champion and second place rival currently. But in the pro class, you have Casper Tunstead, who is your championship leader, 1 point clear of Aaron McGregor. And then you also have in the battle, and the top 4 separated by only always a grand total of 9 points. We also do have Matt Strand, who's currently in the pit lane, I do believe. And we also do have Darren Sharples. And well, where is Darren Sharples, I hear you ask? Well, here is the UKSimRacing Price driver making his way on around the Porsche curves right now into the Corvette curves in the Porsche 992, and all 4 of them have been vying for wins all the way through the season, and Sharples gets it a bit wrong there coming out of the Corvette curve turn 27 and going through turn 28, 29 and 9. A slowdown would be in effect in the race, and that will have cost him a lap in this practice session as he makes his way into the pit lane. But to give you a quick recap, in the AM class, meanwhile, well, we're seeing Andre Livingston, I do believe, not in attendance today. Unfortunately, he's not quite able to make it. It opens the door up for his rivals to try and get some points back on him, including Jack Wyborn, who's currently parked in the pit lane, the TPA racing driver there. You can see, albeit at a distance, in the light blue and pink coloured Porsche 992. He's looking to try and get back on the top step, albeit he's 9 points behind currently, and we'll have to look forward to seeing how those two get on, given the fact it really is primarily a 2-way fight between them. Albeit they do have some rivals who are itching to take their first wins in class, including Satinder Dinsa, and we're speaking of the TG SimSport Tower driver as he makes his way through turn number 1 out the pit lane. Well, he's looking to get his first win on the board, making his way on around. He picked up his first podium this season. He's been pushing for that for some time, and he has shown, particularly at Road Atlanta, that he was a contender for the win, but it all went wrong. But you could say the same for a number of AM drivers, albeit Matt Edmondson did finally pick up his first win at Road Atlanta in what was a crazy race in the AM class, in terms of the fact we had 7 different class leaders over the race distance, and it didn't work out for 6 of them, but it worked out for 1 of them. And as all the drivers get themselves set, and many other drivers come freshly off of doing the official iRacing 24-hour of Le Mans to then jump into the car to do what is the 90-minute endurance race today. So therefore an ultimate test of stamina, but that may explain why we are missing a couple of drivers, as well as some of them being on summer holiday. But we do get an opportunity now to say hello to a good number of you in the chat, including Vamos Speedy, who says he's eagerly waiting. We also say hello there to Stargore Living, who's saying good luck to you all you guys today, especially at Racing Lab and Esports, and you, Paul. Well, that's very kind of you to say, Stargore. Missing out on the Ferrari Le Mans combo is truly hurtful, and indeed the Ferrari expects to go very strong here. Speaking of a Ferrari at Le Mans, here is UKSimRacing Moss's James Conley as he weaves and winds his way all the way up towards turn number 8. And we also say hello there to Craig Tillerston, who says good luck in tonight's race, guys. And well, thank you, Craig, for all of our drivers, on the behalf of all our drivers there, and I'm sure they'll all be pleased to have you tuning in. But without further ado, it is time for qualifying, ladies and gentlemen, and we're in a different approach here today. Given the length of the lap, our drivers will be starting on what will be the run-off area of turn number 27, so coming onto the end of the Corvette curve charge, and as they make the way on through, in fact, coming out of turn 29, we should correct ourselves there. The point being that they have only 2 laps effectively with the time available, and therefore they'll need to absolutely nail them. But as we do see here, the Lamborghini Huracan Evo of Alan Lever making its way across the timeline and up towards turns 1, 2 and 3. What do you need here in order to be able to deliver a pole position up at Le Mans? Well, the thing first is you need to set up the car correctly for this circuit. This circuit is very setup dependent. The main factor is you need as much straight line speed as possible, with this circuit being over 80% flat out in the GT3 machine. And therefore, you're going to be spending a lot of time in 5th and 6th gear, particularly with the run down the Mulsanne straight sections, plus also the run towards Indianapolis and the run up towards the Porsche curves. So put it all together, that means you need top speed. You also need acceleration to go with it. However, you can't forget you also need the cornering capability, particularly through the Porsche curves, which is really the differential here in terms of whether a car's been set up correctly, as we do see Alan Lever having to be towed back to the start point. I do believe picking up the track limit invalidation there, going through the S's. But meanwhile, we look to Paul Joseph Cliss as he makes his way up towards turns 2, 3 and 4 in what is there, the Olympus Esports Porsche 992. And as he weaves his way through it, we'll continue to monitor the progress of Paul Joseph Cliss. He has been showing growing strength over the course of the season. Hasn't yet picked up a top 5 in the AM class, but has been coming quite close to doing so. And I think right now we all love a little bit of an underdog story, and I think we'd all love to see him pick up a top 5 before this season is complete in the number 92. As he makes his way there through at Tetrarud, coming on through. So with those 2 aspects of setup really talked about there, in terms of you need a car that's got a lot of top speed, but also it needs to be able to deal with medium speed corners. What else is there? Well, as a driver, you need to have the confidence that, particularly on your second flying lap, if you do invest in what is one flying lap followed up by another, you need to be able to go full attack. You need a car that is light on fuel, and when it's light on fuel, you feel confident the car is going to be fully hooked up. And I would imagine here some drivers may decide to go for what will be a warm-up lap, which will be much lower compared to their target time, and then they'll go onto that single fast lap to complete their qualifying session. So that comes with a risk versus reward factor. And the fact the risk is, if you get that one lap wrong, you may end up falling all the way down to the very bottom of your qualifying order, indeed down towards the very bottom of the grid, because we do not have any class segregation when our drivers make their way to the grid after qualifying. But the other side of the coin is, if you absolutely nail it, then the reward will be you could be on pole. And much like we've seen in the current season of the UKSimRacing Porsche Cup, where drivers do have that dilemma in the 8-minute qualifying session there of either investing in a single fast lap with multiple warm-up laps, or 2 fast laps, which are on average slower compared to the single fast lap, I think our drivers are going to have that here today. As we do look to Kerry Kokorin making their way on down from the Mulsanne corner and up towards where it's turns 18 and 19, heading towards Indianapolis. If you're wondering why Mulsanne corner takes the name of Mulsanne, it's in reference to the local village, which you can't quite see from that camera angle. We just saw Kokorin making the way out of the corner, but I can tell you this circuit is based around it's based around the city of what is in the south region of Le Mans. But on top of that is where it has multiple villages close by, and Arnage Corner being another instance where there's a village at Arnage which potentially backs its way onto the circuit. So therefore a lot of the corner names actually taking the names from the local terrain and the villages around it. And well, as we do see here, Kerry Corner making his way on through. This is effectively a road racing circuit, and it is based on actual roads used by local individuals on a daily basis, local residents we should say. You can see the road markings there, and as we do see Kokorin making the way up towards the Porsche curves. So when the circuit is not closed off for racing, indeed it sees much commercial use. And well, for our drivers here, they're not going to be worrying about the commercials unless it's the sponsors on the car. They're going to be focusing on the lap times, as we are going to be seeing our first lap times come on in soon. As we say hello there to Exam, who was asking the question, what was Joe Newman doing in P1 in the final practice session, and asking what happened to him in surgery yesterday. It's all goodness me, and that is going to be surgery to the car for what is Kerry Kokorin. They're getting it wrong coming out of the Porsche curves, and that is the one thing from listening down into the words in the paddock. I was hearing from a number of Porsche 9 and 2 drivers, they were concerned about the car coming loose through the exit of turn 26, and we've just seen exactly that. But meanwhile, we start to see some time to come onto the board, and Ryan Walker puts the very first time on the board, a 57.754 in for a 3-minute 57.754, and as he heads up towards the Dunlop chicane this time around, we only get one more lap here, and he's going to go all in the BMW M4 on the satellite racing driver and his favourite circuit, as I'm to understand it, and looking for a very strong result here. And could we see him take his first podium of his UKSimRacing GT3 League career? We'll have to wait and see, but definitely one to watch out for. He has been grinding pace over the course of the season, but meanwhile from one BMW driver to another, he sets the fastest lap of this qualifying session by 2/10. It's Håkon Grebstad on a 56.391 and absolutely hitting it from the start, and we have one more lap now to try and improve. As he makes his way out of the corners there, we do say hello to Greg Zenhai, I should say, which says, go John Doble, lost cousin of Mikey Doble, in reference to the fact, well, there is a driver in the British Touring Car Championship of Mikey Doble, albeit John Doble from the US, as we see him here making his way on to the Mulsanne Straight. They bear no family relation, but they do share the same surname. As he makes his way on down here in the number 77 car, you remember that John Doble, our winner in the first race of the season, then had to miss 2 rounds due to personal circumstances, and back in round 4 and still trying to find that momentum from the season opener, albeit he's been batting for top 5s in class, but it hasn't quite been the outright pace we saw at the very season opener. But still, the Fuji International Speedway being a very different circuit to the rounds that followed, and therefore there's plenty of variety in this championship, and variety is what breeds different race winners, and it's about being consistent over all the rounds and getting those points, which is what makes you a champion. But as we do see it, Doble make his way on down the second part of the Mulsanne Straight here, flat out as he goes. And we're talking about the fact that most of the roads around this circuit are used by local residents and businesses. Well, as you make your way down the Mulsanne Straight, particularly if you attend a race here and you get the opportunity to walk on the circuit, what you'll find is there's actually a number of businesses that base down the first 2 segments of the Mulsanne Straight, and there's a golf course down the 3rd segment. It's off to the right of where Doble's just making his way around, and those open up only when the circuit's not being used, alternatively when individuals are walking down the circuit, particularly between, say, race sessions. And well, the things will be extortionate on price, but I can tell you one thing, it's great to say that you can have a cup of tea and even play a round of golf by the circuit side. But speaking of teeing off here, we've teed off with what's been a bit of a subpar lap for John Doble, but now trying to find his way onto a much faster lap. But as he heads on up towards what will be his next breaking point, we look to Matt Edmondson here, weaving his way on through the Ford chicanes there and heading towards the end of what will be this lap. We're not bringing you on an onboard lap for this qualifying session. Indeed, we're letting our driver focus here, and indeed we're not trying to put the commentator's curse on anyone. But as Edmondson crosses the line, well, that is going to be a 4-minute flat point 877. Not a bad lap to put in P3 in the M class. So that's his qualifying session done and dusted. And well, a number of drivers on what is their 2nd lap now. And as we do look to Martin Tilling in one of the sole McLaren MP4 12C machines, making his way up towards the Porsche curves here. And well, the British machine, it may be old, but it's still a late great at the GT3 class. And as he makes his way in to the Porsche curves, they're coming from right into left and doing everything he can there, although you can see a little bit of a wobble on the car as the rear starts to come loose. With a low amount of downforce on the car, it is going to feel that way for the mid-engine rear-wheel drive machines in particular. They will already feel that rear end start to become unsettled as he does the direction change there for turns 26 and 27, keeps towards in the white lines, and therefore it's a valid lap so far as he makes his way now down towards the Ford chicanes. And well, he is the man to try and find a way to upset Håkon Grebstad's run for pole position, and Tilling has gone purple in the second half of lap thus far. 2 corners remain, and that McLaren very fast over a single lap. It cannot be counted out in the very colourful Tiki SimSport livery, and as he heads to the timeline, what's it going to be for Tilling? Where his original pole, it's a 55.419. It's 2.5 tenths faster. No, in fact, it's a 55.657, we should say, as Joe Newman pulls off a pole lap there and puts himself back to the pits. Well, as he does, Ryan Davies parked up there. So Joe Newman creeping a lap in the Lamborghini Huracan. But what about Håkon Grebstad here with just over a minute to go in qualifying? Canadian Motorsport driver find a way to fight back, or will this be a late turn in qualifying, an unexpected turn? Grebstad was the expected favourite to take pole. As he crossed the line, it's only going to be P3 at best in the elite class, a 55.726. It's not enough for the BMW. And as a result, the number one driver, Grebstad, right now, he's going to have to get this done in the race, but the race is a very long journey, to be fair. And meanwhile, we do look to the pro class. Chris Constable, the winner from last time out, is currently your fastest man out there for downforce racing on 56.353, which is an absolutely staggering lap. It puts him P5 overall. As we look here to Casper Brotner, who is then P2, a further almost second behind. But speaking of those standings, we see Marvin Cruz jumps up to P2 in the AM class down to 59.702. So Cruz nailing it there late in the day and jumping up. But Satinder Dinsa is currently your AM pole sitter on a 58.197, and that is a phenomenal lap. That puts him P14 on the overall grid. And I think Dinsa may have just granted himself pole position, and this could be a good sign of things to come for the American. As meanwhile, we see there now that Ryan Moles parked up after what was a battling display in Spain last week. That is qualifying complete, ladies and gentlemen. And with that, we now get ready to go to the grid. But before we do, we've still got 5 minutes here, giving our drivers plenty of time to get themselves set up in terms of their car setups, and also giving themselves a comfort break. And well, we can see there's some shocked faces in the YouTube chat, particularly with regards to how qualifying played out in the elite class. And will the Lamborghini Huracan Evo of Joe Newman taking pole position overall, and in the AM class, Satinder Dinsa picking up his first pole position of his UKSimRacing GT3 League AM career. And will a phenomenal day for a good number of drivers. And now we are counting down that clock. But whilst we are counting it down, we'd just like to take a moment to remind you, ladies and gentlemen, that beyond potentially subscribing to the YouTube channel today, if you have been a long-time follower of UKSimRacing, if you've ever wondered how you can potentially support the community, did you know there is a quick way to do so via our affiliates? For UKSimRacing is affiliated with multiple sim racing and real-world motorsport companies, including Race Anywhere, Race SimLab, and also Demon Tweaks. And if you do head to our website, that's uksimracing.co.uk today, and that website will appear on screen very shortly. And there it is. Well, in the top right corner of our website, you can see there's a link to our Discord. Now, why would you want to click on that? Well, firstly, if you ever want to take part in any of our one-off events, one of our special events, alternatively our leagues, it is a mandatory requirement for you to be part of our Discord. But secondly, as well, focusing more on supporting UKSimRacing, well, a number of our affiliates provide discount codes which are only available in the UKSimRacing Discord. And therefore, if you put 2 and 2 together, if you go onto our Discord and use one of those affiliate codes, it does mean that you as the consumer are a winner because you get a discount on your purchase. But it also does mean here at UKSimRacing and the whole community, we are winners as well, because every penny we make from our affiliate earnings is funded back into the community to fund future series, including the GT3 League, the Porsche Cup, and plenty more we have planned in 2023. Indeed, we're a non-profit organisation, and we believe that every penny goes into the community. And do remember, a little purchase can go a long way in supporting UKSimRacing. But what's also going to go a long way here today is a solid performance as our drivers get ready to go. And we should point out, by the way, that we did make a mistake in referring to Chris Constable as your winner in the pro class last time out in the Spanish circuit at Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya. It's Chris Kirkland there, getting our surnames mixed up slightly, and hope you do forgive me there, as we do see the downforce race with an absolutely stellar drive, not just to the pro win his first of the season, but also what was that's his second of the season, I should say, but what was also a demonstrable win to his boon to his aspirations in terms of overall positioning in taking what was a maiden overall podium, and I do believe the first driver ever in UKSimRacing GT3 League history outside of the top class of the grid to take an overall podium, and a well-deserved one at that. So the 112 driver making his way around Mulsanne there, and with 2 minutes to go, getting himself fully set up and ready to go. But as he does so, we'd also like to let you know, ladies and gentlemen, that as well as with regards to our affiliates, if you've been tuning in for some time, if you've ever sat there and thought that you'd like to give us your feedback with regards to our series, because we do have plenty planned for 2023, there's only so much we can run at a given point in time. Indeed, I do believe we have in our book what is a potential multi-class GTP plus GT3 series. Alternatively, we also have in mind what is a HBD GT1 series planned. Well, if you want to give us feedback on those potential options, also say the GT3 League that you're watching here today, or other series that you've seen on the channel previously, such as the Porsche Cup, or alternatively our Motorcast endurance events that we hold every year, where you can give us your feedback using the link provided in the YouTube chat. And if any of our drivers aren't tuning into this, so they're not racing today, or they're tuning into this after the broadcast has aired, well, the link is also available in the official UKSimRacing Discord. But do remember, as a community, we are all in it for you guys and girls who form the community. So therefore, if there's something you want to see league-wise, or you want to see some refinements to current leagues and whatnot, and even as spectators, remember, you've got your say as well, because at the end of the day, it's entertainment for you guys and girls on a Sunday evening today. And, well, just as important as the drivers on the grid, we couldn't do this without you. Do let us know your feedback and thoughts in the Google form there that's been linked in the YouTube chat. But as we now have 40 seconds before we do go to the grid for green flag racing, we do look to Alexander Trevino-Michelson, the Racing Lab Esports AM driver, making his way down through Indianapolis. And as he does through the long left-hander and up towards Arnage at turn at number 19, we're getting himself set onto the brakes here. As he comes on down all the way through the gearbox. Well, you can see Arnage there with the depression on the apex curve as well, a very tricky corner to get right. But as he makes his way on through, we have a question there, which is what is track temperature from Stargore living? And well, track temperature currently is holding at 36 degrees centigrade, 22 degrees ambient temperature. Model time on the simulator is 3 o'clock in the afternoon on August the 19th, 2023. So therefore, those are our conditions, ladies and gentlemen. And well, the date and time are set, the conditions are set as well. It is time for us to head to the grid for our first endurance race round of the season. But the question is, who is going to outlast the 90 minutes and come out on top? Let's find out. So as our drivers make their way to the grid, this is how they'll line up for round number 7 of the UKSimRacing GT3 League. As we can see, Joe Newman there takes pole position for Empire Motorsport, and what a performance there it has been for Joe Newman in this qualifying session to take his maiden pole position. He's joined on the front row by Martin Tillin from Tiki Simsport Kimi. 2.5 tenths was the delta in the end, within Håkon Grebstad for Ignium Motorsport starting P3 on the second row. The Ignium Motorsport driver is joined by Tiki Simsport Kimi's Ryan Davies, within Chris Constable being your highest placed pro. He's your pro pole sitter starting P5 on the third row for UKSimRacing Moss, and he's joined by Ryan Walker for Satellite Racing. Then on P7, it's Ryan Moles for Protect Motorsport, and he has alongside him Casper Brotner for Old Dudes in Cars. Within P9, P10, going to Reece Saunders for Team Year 1, and Aaron McGregor, who completes your top 10 there, the pro driver. On row number 6, it's Darren Sharples and Aaron Herbert in an all 6-row pro car lineup, with the UKSimRacing Price driver ahead of Team Hard's driver. And then we do have behind them on row number 7 and 11 for UKSimRacing Price, joined by your pole sitter of Satinder Deenser for Tiki Simsport Toa. And then do have Casper Tunstead, who starts P15 for Peak Sim Racing, joined on the 8th row by Racing Lab Esports AM's Alexander Trevino-Michelson, with Marvin Cruz for Bike Racing and Slow and Steady Racing's Richard Jones starting together on row at number 9. The top 20 is rounded out by Matt Strand for Racing Lab Esports AM 3 and Slow and Steady Racing Stuart Pearson, with then Daniel Pace starting P21 for Old Dudes in Cars, joined on the 11th row by Jack Wyborn for TPA Racing. On row at number 12, it's Joan Doble for Tiki Simsport Kimi and Thomas Balscher for what is there the privateer outfit starting P24. And then behind them on row number 13, it's Matt Edmondson for UKSimRacing Clark, joined by Racing Lab Esports AM's Steinar Sani. He's in the number 2 team of Racing Lab Esports AM. And then BJ Alvarez for Team Sim Racing Chicago, and Paul Joseph Cliff start off your 14th row there. The Olympus Esports driver then being followed up by Chris Kirtland for Downforce Racing, who didn't get a valid time on the board, and neither did Kerry Kukoran, so the 2 teammates there for Downforce Racing starting from the back on row number 15. And then it'll be on row at number 16, Brandon Hay for Newbridge Esports, joined by UKSimRacing Moss James Conley. And that is your grid, ladies and gentlemen. 32 starters, 28 got a lap on the board, and well, we're not too far away now from going green flag racing. And what was all of our drivers just wind their way on through what is the Porsche curves onto the Corvette curves. We can see a man more speedy there cheering on the UKSimRacing team drivers. We can see D there in the YouTube chat saying today the BMW will shine, Grebstad for the win. So we've got plenty of bets being laid down here in terms of who could be our potential winners. We also say hello to Oyvind Auckland there, who wishes our drivers good luck. And well, Martin Tillin there saying, told you, in reference to expected Joe Newman to potentially be on pole, or the McLaren to be battling for where's the front row of the grid. But as they made their way down to the last couple of corners here, which is line formation at the moment, but they will eventually start to line up 2 by 2 2 coming out the final corner, I do believe. Well, in fact, they might have been told on the driver's briefing it's a single file start here for safety. I think we are getting a single file start, and as Newman makes his way out the final corner, he goes immediately here, and it's lights out and away we go for 90 minutes of Le Mans as all the drivers charge their way up towards Dunlop Curve. But as they head in towards the opening braking zone here, this will be the differentiator. Immediately cold brakes and cold tyres. We could see some mistakes, some drives, as we have heard that James Conley's had a difficult start to his race, starting from the pit lane, I do believe. But as everybody makes their way on through, we can see that Casper Protner under a bit of early pressure and restored as they roll through, and it does look as though Ryan Walker in a bit of a slow start as he makes way up the hill. Chris Constable's got it wrong. He's in the gravel for him to gather, and the exit there coming out of the Dunlop chicane. In fact, Constable pointing the wrong way. You can see everyone coming down the hill, but as they do, Alan Levitt is side by side with what is there Casper Tunstead, defence versus Tunstead, and right now Aaron Herbert trying to close up behind. In fact, Aaron Herbert just in front there trying to break away. It's the team hard driver gets a good start, but as they make the way on towards the Mulsanne straight for the first time of asking. Now everything will start to settle down into the slipstream shenanigans, we like to refer to it, where will be drivers trying to look for the advantage on one another come the end of the multitude of straights. As they charge away through, also this is a great opportunity for fuel saving. If drivers haven't thought about it already, they'll definitely start to do so now as they make the way at maximum RPM all the way down towards the first of Mulsanne chicane side by side here for Dinso versus Herbert. It's the AM defending versus the pro, and as they make the way into the braking zone here, well, Herbert's going to try and go around the outside to inside. Dinso's still there, side by side between the two BMW M4 drivers. I think they could just let each other go here. Perhaps contact between Dinso and Lever, and that's going to send him slightly wide. And as they make the way down to the second part of the Mulsanne straight here, well, that's been costly for Dinso. Hoping it's not too much major damage on the car. As they make the way down, you can see already Casper Tunstead now trying to take a look here. He's got the distant toe of Lever as well. I think Dinso may have been knocked about and lost a bit of pace, but meanwhile Marvin Cruz, who we jump on board with here, the Bike Racing drive goes past Dinso. I think picks up a slowdown for that run wide effectively and the Mulsanne chicane, and therefore Cruz now up into lead of the AM class here, following the Porsche train as he makes his way on through at the second chicane and up towards Mulsanne corner. As they come out and on towards the next part of the straight here, well, now Richard Jones close in behind, and as they head up towards the next braking zone, we are going to check as to what happened to some of our drivers early on, ladies and gentlemen. But I think we may have had a couple of drivers opt to start from the pit lane. In fact, Jack Wyborn, we can confirm, did start this race from the pit lane, although we're not quite sure what's happened after that. We will find out for you as soon as we can. We also can confirm, I do believe, that James Conley started this race in the pit lane as well. So two drivers opted to start from the pit lane, and meanwhile Chris Constable had it all go wrong in the opening couple of corners, and we'll come into a replay of that soon. But meanwhile, looking here to your leaders, well, this is Newman versus Tilling, and well, these are two names we've not typically seen right at the front. But meanwhile, they're going all in here as Tilling defending around the outside to the inside. It will be in terms of his attack. Meanwhile, it will be Newman defending inside to outside, but Tilling sweeps around using the speed there in the McLaren MP4 12C, and Martin Tilling is now your race leader, but he gets it wrong out the corner, and he's into the wall there on the exit of Indianapolis, and well, Tilling will fall a long way down the order now as all the field staggers this way on through. Tilling side by side with Casper Protner, who's taken the lead of the pro class. Meanwhile, he's P7 overall, and as they make the way now down towards the Porsche curves, with a nose to tail charge here, and Tilling trying to get back into this fight. He's got damage, I suspect there's some suspension damage on that car, but he's not letting him upset him as he makes his way in the charge up towards the Porsche curves. But as it's side by side here going in to the right handle, well, who's going to back out here? As you can see, Aaron McGregor coming up behind. McGregor trying to sweep around the outside. He takes the lead of the pro class. So what didn't work out in qualifying right now is working out in the race of the Protec Motorsport driver, but we haven't seen him on the top step for some time. We've definitely seen him drilled into the pro pack over the course of the season in terms of his relative pace after a dominant first round and a leading second round. Well, right now McGregor, the Scotsman, absolutely flying once again as he makes way out the Corvette curves and onwards towards the Ford chicanes. As he heads on down, and meanwhile we look a little bit further back to Kerry Kokorin, who's in a bit of a sandwich here between Jamina McAllister and Brandon Hay as they head in towards the Corvette curves themselves. Kokorin here making some gradual progress, but as they make their way through the left-hander of turn number 27, and they're going a bit deep as he rolls on through, but not too much to run wide, and all over the back of Kokorin here, and will the BMW M4 driver look for a move? Well, Kokorin's going to defend here into the chicane, and it's going to be too wide on entry, and Hay goes around the outside, and Kokorin there lets it go, does not force the battle all the way through the corners as they make their way to the end of the lap. Meanwhile, we look to the front of the field, and after one lap, it is Joe Newman who leads, and a Håkon Grebstad P2. They are the best part of which 2.5 seconds clear of P3 at Ryan Davis, followed by Brian Walker. Then we do have Reece Saunders P5, followed by Martin Tilling P6, your pro leader Aaron McGregor P7, Casper Protner P8, Aaron Herbert P9, and then we do have Ryan Moles completing your top 10. Best rest P11 is Darren Sharp, as he's made some ground early on, and then we do have your AM leader in P13 of Marvin Cruz, as Cruz there for Bike Racing under a bit of pressure from Richard Jones right now, the Pro drive closing up on the AM as they make their way on through it. Turn number 8 at Tetra Ridge once again as they charge away down onto the Mulsanne straight now. Settle down once again for a brief moment in terms of drivers now trying to pick the top. One of them picking the fuel saving, but meanwhile, whilst this is occurring, we do see in this freeway battle for what is effectively P3 in the Pro Class, Aaron McGregor with a slowdown. In fact, McGregor with a huge slowdown. I suspect that's a running wide at Tetra Ridge, but he loses the lead of the Pro Class. Casper Rotner takes it back, so therefore we are seeing this in exchanges. As meanwhile, Cruz and Jones side by side, and Richard Jones up the inside and says, okay, I'll take this off you. And Cruz says, I don't mind if you do, we're in different classes of racing. And as they make their way out to the first Mulsanne chicane, 5 minutes in on to the second lap they go. Well, we do look to Joe Newman here, who's got all the faith and cheering on there from Billy Bob from Empire Motorsport. That's Billy Bob Ray in the YouTube chat. Good evening to you, good sir. And right now, Newman under pressure from Grebstad. But here's the interesting part of this battle. Now, you may be thinking at this point, why doesn't Grebstad just try and tear past with the slipstream and whatnot in the BMW straight line speed? Well, the thing is, he can do that, but then he ends up on the next straight providing all the straight line speed benefits for the Lamborghini behind him. So therefore, what he really wants to do here, if these guys are running ample pace to stay clear of the battle behind them by a good few seconds, and they are 3 seconds ahead of Davies, Saunders and also Walker right now, then the idea is they just focus on running together, and Grebstad will want to stay P2. He can save fuel, he can short shift the car, plus also just lift and coast on the throttle into the braking zones, and therefore he can save enough fuel to be able to leapfrog Newman when they do come into the pits. But it's a long way to the pits, and indeed we've heard rumours down the paddock this could be anywhere between the 2-stop and a 4-stop race. We'll have to wait and see who's decided what in that regard. But as we do see Walker here at the back of the next train in the battle for where's effectively P3 between David Saunders and Walker, with Tilling a further 1.4 seconds behind as they make their way onwards towards the Indianapolis corner once again. No change at the moment. You can see that Saunders putting it out of the toe, give himself some breathing room in terms of bleeding the speed off early. But as they come on through it, on Stuart Pearson here looking to pick up another driver, and will the AM driver currently P2 in the AM class right now, chasing after Marvin Cruz. And Stuart Pearson, he's really come to strengths in this final half of the season, in the fact that we did see a difficult start to the season. The SAS racing cars, they're both sharing a bit of camera time as he makes his way down towards Arnage. Onto the brakes he goes. Car wide there in the rear of your picture. I believe that may have been a runoff for what was Steinar Sani getting it very, very wrong. In fact, Steinar Sani recovering now. The race now towards AM2 driver. It's all gone horrifically wrong there. A brief short notice. The Norwegian driver having a difficult moment. We've got a car on the inside of Arnage. Now, how on earth has that happened? I'm not quite sure, but I can tell you one thing. That's Matt Edmondson, who's managed to find his way onto the infield of Arnage's apex, and he gets himself back up to speed right now. But we've got a replay to take a look at that there. But meanwhile, as we look to your leaders here making their way up towards the forward chicanes, the first thing we do is we get a replay of the race start, and particularly for what happened to Chris Constable when he made his way up towards the Dunlop chicane. And here's the replay from lap 1. Made his way under brake, and the UKSimRacing Moss driver gets it right initially, can't bounce a bit there on the curve. Second curve looks up, you can see the rear of the car lets go, and will cold tyres there trying to get the throttle down, and the car just did not want to settle. And for Chris Constable, his race ends up rather rapidly, where I believe he managed to get himself back on the way, but having to let the field go before he could then go racing. But meanwhile, we also did have an incident for what was Martin Tilling, and well, this is what happened to our battle for the lead of the elite class, and just getting the power down there, and we corrected the car initially, and then getting the power down again, and the rear of the McLaren just letting it go there, and a surprise and not a welcome one to be sure, as he went back to racing. And then we take a look at what happened to Alexander Tremino McCalson, who made his way into Indianapolis on the open lap under brake. There goes a bit deep, misses the braking zone. The rear of the car lets go as he tries to turn through it, and well, they're having to wait his turn to reach on with all the field coming through. And also for BJ Alvarez, an instant, I believe this was into the Porsche curves, the Team Sim Racing Chicago driver, and the gold-black Porsche there, the car letting go in a very similar moment, albeit at the start of the Porsche curves, to what we saw for Kerry Kokorin in qualifying. So the Porsche drivers in particular are really having a nightmare through that latter half of the lap. But also we saw in lap number 2, it all go wrong for Steinar Sani, and well, this only happened a moment ago for the racing lap eastwards. AM driver coming down into Indianapolis behind Tintin Dinsa, battling for what was the top 3 of the AM class. And what on earth just happened to Steinar Sani? We came into contact there with what was the Pro Porsche Downforce Racing. I do believe that was Kokorin in the 112, unless I'm mistaken. In fact, I made a mistake. That's Chris Kirkland, in fact. And well, Kirkland had been involved in contact with Steinar Sani's car, just let it go under braking here. Let's just listen in and ride on board. And the car just snapped Verstappen. I think he's put the brakes on there, and the direction change coming through the corner as then Kirtland just coming into the path of BMW that was out of control at that point, and Stanley could do nothing other than hope it comes to a stop out the way. But I think there, the brakes, when he applied them, the car did not settle down and just over-rotate on that rear end, and will that direction change really upsetting the car. But as we do return to your live pictures, we are waiting for that replay as to what happened to Matt Edmondson on that lap at a large corner. But we return to your live pictures for a brief moment here on lap number 3, and we turn to changes right now beyond the back and forth in the slipstream. No major changes, albeit we can see that Reece Saunders now has moved into P3, and here comes Håkon Grebstad. He's looking up the inside of Newman, and I think Grebstad is looking up behind him and seeing that Saunders has brought the gap down to these two, down to 2.5 seconds. Now they make their way side by side here. It's a drag race between two German engines. They make their way through the Audi engine in the Lambo versus the BMW engine in the own works machine. As they come down to the braking zone, it will be Grebstad who takes the lead this race through Indianapolis and up towards Arnage. We can see Newman going a little bit deep there, but he brings it back on some dirt on the right side tyres. This will hurt the car going into the Porsche curves slightly. He may lose a bit of apex speed, but I think that Grebstad wary that Saunders is the closest BMW, and he wants to try and stay clear of the BMW as well as possible. As they make the way down, that's not to write off Newman, to be fair. Newman is no slouch. He put that car on pole, deservedly put it on pole by almost 2.5 tenths. So I'd imagine here that Joe Newman right now feeling the itch, which is to try and take victory here today and become another namesake victory in the elite class. But as they make the way on through the Porsche curves, meanwhile, Reece Saunders now trying to close up to this, and indeed trying to break away from Davies and Tilling. And you can see Martin Tilling battling back into this top 3 battle. I think with the damage he's picked up on the teams from Kimi and McLaren, it is a much harder car to drive compared to how it previously was, but at the same time I think he'll be feeling as though this car can still go the distance, and he doesn't need to take a fast repair any time soon. He'll do that as per his scheduled pit stop window. But as they make their way down towards the Ford chicanes, we're a long way away from pit stops. So we are reckoning the first pit stops, rumour has it, will be occurring around the 24th minute mark. So at the end will be 6 laps around here at Le Mans circuit. Some drivers were talking about going at 28 minutes, so going an extra lap, as Joe Newman takes the lead this race back. And I think they're Grebstad having to slow down through the final couple of corners. As they make their way into lap number 4, we do get a replay of what exactly happened to Matt Edmondson on lap number 2 at Arnage. Going a bit wide there by default, so therefore it was a proceeding instead followed up by what happened here, and onto the brakes he goes, and the car just coming loose there under braking into Arnage, and we're in a similar way to what happened to Steiner, certainly in terms of the car snapping under braking, but for Edmondson now at much lower speed, I suspect may have just turned and come down the gearbox a bit too aggressively, and the rear of that Ferrari just simply saying no can do, sir. But as he brings himself back up to speed there on the replay, we meanwhile do return back to the live speed here, and as he makes his way onwards towards the Mulsanne straight now, Joe Newman trying to keep Grebstad at bay, but again you can see Reece Saunders has really closed up on this, and I think this is what Grebstad was worried about, that this battle between the two leaders will become a 3-way fight and a 4-way fight, and Grebstad once again now peeling his way ahead here in the tow. As they make their way down towards the first braking zone, you can see Tilling's moved back up to P4 as well, so don't count out the McLaren driver. He definitely is putting in quite the effort to recovering, but I think at the same time as well, now knowing he's got 1.5 seconds to the BMW of Saunders in front, and he'll want to be a little bit closer given the fact that Saunders and Newman will both have the tow, always Grebstad in front of them, and therefore they can siphon it, and Tilling by comparison now has to lead the rest of the field up the road. But as they make their way into the second chicane, well, Saunders side by side here with Newman. It's all about this little bit of strategic battling here. It's the strategy on the straights, and Saunders will take this position. Now Saunders I think will expect that Newman will then try and go back ahead of him in the run towards Mulsanne, but if Newman is thinking smart here, he'll just simply sit behind and lift off the fuel, lift off the save fuel we should say, for the simple reason he wants to be behind in the run up towards Indianapolis and get ahead there. But as they make their way up towards Mulsanne right now, well, as the drivers make their way through, this is your top 6. Moving on further back, let's not forget we've got a plenty of car field here today, a grand total of 32 cars on the circuit, of which we do still have 32 running as far as I'm aware, and we see John Doe here chasing after Stuart Pearson. Albeit Pearson right now second place and driver, with Doe being his main rival for that position, and then we do have Page and Tunstead behind. They're battling for P7 in the pro class, but as they make the way down, you can see there Daniel Page very eager to follow in the wheel tracks of John Doe all the way. He keeps taking a little bit of peek there going into Mulsanne corner, but he can't quite seem to find a way to find that opportunity to make a move. But Doe was going to go slightly deep. He does hook the car back up there, but it is a run wide, and that's going to cost them some time as they make the way to the second part on the run down towards Indianapolis now. Meanwhile, Mans, a bit further up the road, and Lever side by side with Darren Sharples, the two UKSimRacing prize drivers here, having a bit of an exchange. Who's going to be the one who gets on through? It will be Lever who makes the move. It moves up to P3 Pro as they head into the braking zone. We've got a car in the wall, and that is Aaron Herbert who's ended up in the barrier there at what is Indianapolis corner. What on earth happened to the Team Hard machine? We'll have to find out in due course. But meanwhile, and Lever moves up to P2 effective now in the Pro class with a total of bits of Aaron Herbert. Well, however, it's gone wrong. It's gone very, very wrong for what is the number 5 driver, and while that hits the wall, it may just be a race ender, but we'll have to wait and see. As meanwhile here, Lever trying to push on his target. It's Casper Brotner, and Alan Lever, let's point out, battling very hard over the course of the season, has been fighting for top 5, but he's yet to achieve a podium in the Pro class this season. Well, he's trying to go one step further today than that. He's trying to take the win, not just the podium with it, as he makes his way on through the Porsche curves. We say hello to Nathan Scott, who says Joe's fresh perm doing work in reference to Joe Newman. And I think they're a little bit of banter in the Empire Motorsport garage. But meanwhile, as we do look from our pro and top 3, was a bit further down the order, we do look to Joseph Blister, the Olympus Esports 92 driver, who finds himself right in the midst of a battle for a top 5 place in the AM class. He's B7 chasing after Wyborn and Barjuk as they head in towards the Corvette curves. He has got Kerry Corin and Pro behind him ahead of what is James Conley. So Conley trying to get into this fight as well. But you can see there the wrecking machine of the privateer of Barjuk making its way up towards turns 30 and 31. And he heads into the braking zone here with the number 14 driver eager to try and get everything right here, looking to bring home a top 5, albeit in the snake train of cars, winding and weaving their way on through. Let's wait and see here how this plays out, and whether Wyborn can try to find a way on through it and leapfrog its way into the podium battle. As they make their way onto lap number 5 here, all the drivers right now carrying on as they wish to continue. And meanwhile, at the front of the field, Reece Saunders has taken the lead in this race, and Grebstad once again going slow, coming out of Tetra Rouge corner onto Mulsanne. I wonder if that's a slowdown for Grebstad, or whether it's also perhaps a little bit of strategic lift off and coast. Or we have to be wary if he's doing that strategically, or he's falling quite far back there. So I think it is a slowdown penalty that Grebstad is picking up, albeit we don't have the data to confirm or deny that. We're having to base it on what we can see here with Mark 1 eyeball, and as they make their way up towards turn number 12 on the Mulsanne straight, here will be the second chicane that's coming up. We can definitely see Saunders now leading this race as Newman peels out of the toe there and onto the race line, and Newman slowing down as well. And we didn't see Newman go wide. I think they're all trying to play the long game here, a fuel save, and I think Newman very cognizant of the fact he gave quite a bit of fuel saving to Grebstad early on in this race, so therefore now might be trying to ask that the favourite is returned by Grebstad. I think these two will want to try and settle things down as soon as possible, so they've got to be wary of what is there. Saunders trying to break away, so it goes quite wide. That may be another slowdown for Newman, and this time it may be a mandated one. But as they head on towards Mulsanne corner, meanwhile, we look from them to what is Aaron McGregor here. And well, after it's gone quite wrong for McGregor in the early stage of this race, right now down in P12 in the Pro class, and looking to recover as soon as he possibly can and make some further headway. Will be a long way to go here, and it's not over until that checker flag falls, so therefore he will be thinking about one thing, and that's one thing only, and that is staying in it to win it. But meanwhile, side by side here, going into the second chicane between Conley and Paul Joseph Bliss as they make their way up through, and on the exit still side by side as they go. But watch the Ferrari now as it builds up the speed versus the Porsche. You can see that Kerry Kokorin tucking in behind the double pair of arms, and as they make their way onwards towards turn number 14-15. Well, right now I think Conley will have the overspeed here, but meanwhile Bliss is going to look for it. It's going to be very close. It's almost free wide there as Kokorin positions themselves on the inside as they make their way into the brakes. Well, Bliss now is going to have to battle with Kokorin. This is not what they expected, and Kerry Kokorin gets on through as well. But meanwhile Conley goes deep, and the battle continues here on quarter exit as Conley now has to regain all the speed he's just lost, but has been right on board here with the Ferrari driver. UKSimRacing loss. It's an easy mistake to make, and I suspect that mistake was made due to the overspeed he picked up coming out of the corner, and then battling hard and trying to keep ahead of both Kokorin and Bliss, and will just outbrake himself into the corner. And well, it is a typical mistake, and that's what happens when you are in the midst of a major battle. As he gets ready to break in to the right hand into South Indianapolis, we can see a nose to tail the trail. Conley the faster on the brakes, able to carry a lot more speed, and I think he's got a bit of a more stable rear end than this Ferrari by comparison with the Porsche in front of him. But heading up towards what we are Arjat on the brakes all the way down to first gear. Nice early apex and get on that power as soon as you can. As they power the way on out. Meanwhile, we look from them to the lead of the AM class, and it's Stuart Pearson who's taken the lead for Slow and Steady Racing over Marvin Cruz as the bike racing driver has lost out. And how did this happen, I hear you ask? Well, here's the immediate replay. As they made the way up into the Porsche curves here. Pearson on the inside of Cruz, going all in early on. I think this might be a sign that Pearson feels so he's got the pace to lead this, and as he made his way on in, Cruz giving the space to operate, and that's how the move was made. And Cruz here, I think, will be just tucking in behind the BMW and thinking about how he can fuel save and use its slipstream in order to be able to gain more race time later on in the race. But as they come out of the corner and on to lap number 6 they go, it is Stuart Pearson who leads his first lap in the season as he makes his way on to another one. And as he charges up towards the Dunlop chicane, well, right now we can see a bit further back Satinder Diensa still trying to recover his way up the order after it was a great start, blighted by a bit of an error in the opening laps. But the TE Sport Tower driver, after that huge slowdown, now in P3, he's got John Doble just behind by almost 2 seconds, and he's got 3 pros to make his way through before he can go hunting after the top 2 AMs. Starts off with Daniel Pace. As he comes down through the S's here, meanwhile, looking from them to what is behind, John Doble side by side here with Brandon Hay, and Hay getting the place of a Doble. And the Canadian driver here letting Brandon Hay go, I think, conscious. The Newbridge eSports driver may be able to make a bit more progress for him and therefore bring the drivers in front to him. Well, it's a good idea, and it's definitely one to do. If you're not batting with the driver trying to come on through, then why waste time? Let them do the hard work for you as they make the way on to Mulsanne. Meanwhile, we look to the front of the field, and with it, the end of the Mulsanne straight, almost albeit heading up towards the second chicane right now. And it's Christian versus Newman, as right now Reece Saunders is 2.2 seconds up the road, and Saunders is just running away at the front of the field. Is the team year 1 driver, but the drivers make the way onto the brakes here for the second chicane. Christian right now keeping Newman behind, so they continue to exchange time off one another here. And well, it's Christian or Newman potentially trying to think of an alternative strategy. Perhaps they're trying to go one lap longer and give themselves perhaps one less pit stop at the end of the day. But it does look as though Saunders right now has taken the approach, which is this is a sprint race, and therefore I'm just running away with this. And it's not an invalid approach to do so, to be fair. You can win these races by just simply going all in and deciding to use all the fuel and try and open up the gap. If you feel as though you've got the pace to open that gap, where drivers behind may be spending less time in the pits because they've got less fuel to put in the car, it's a gamble, but it's different philosophies of racing. And as they make the way all the way down towards what is Indianapolis once again, meanwhile we look from them back to Tom Barger and what is Jack Wyborn, and what Barger right now chasing after Wyborn. He has got the company of Corin behind, as meanwhile Wyborn here trying to push on behind Alexander Torino Macalson, as we do show you those overall standings on the left hand side of your screen. And well, we have had 2 retirees in this race, PJ Alvarez and Aaron Herbert, and well, as Wyborn here in the tow, looking up the inside now. Torino Macalson's got the overspeed, and the TPA racing driver wants to get this done now. Well, we can see that Torino Macalson missing a rear wing of the seam. That's come off the car unexpectedly. I'm not quite sure when that's fallen off, but it definitely is missing. And as they make the way down towards Indianapolis now, Wyborn I think will feel as though he's got this done, albeit the gap between Torino Macalson is coming down as they go through the first kink on the run towards Indianapolis, but I think he will be safe given that gap is 4/10 and it's only closing gradually. But meanwhile, look at Kokorin here, tuck it into the toe of Barjuk as they make the way up towards Indianapolis now. Side by side they go into the corner. It's Barjuk on the left, meanwhile Kokorin on the right, back on the brakes here, and well, the downforce racing at Pro Porsche makes its way to the inside of the Indianapolis corner and gets it done there for P22 overall. A key pass made here as Kokorin's looking to make more haste, but look at this from Conley looking around the outside, and this is for class position as they make them through. Conley cuts it back, and as they exit now, it's a drag race between the Porsche and the Ferrari. They're equal in second and third gear and acceleration, but now the Ferrari starts to gradually creep ahead as they make the way on down. And on the gearbox they go all the way, as we can see plenty of drivers coming into the pit lane. So it looks like that 24th minute pit stop was correct from what we're hearing down the paddock. But Conley here on the inside of Barger gains the place. That is P6 in the M class, taking the UKSimRacing Moss driver. And the Ferrari driver now, his next target will be Jack Wyborn, who is only 1.5 seconds up the road. But it becoming a pit stop season as all the drivers, I think, each should come into the pits sooner rather than later. well, we'll have to see how it shakes up the field in terms of those pit stops. Can anybody get another lap in? That's the big question that will be on the lips of many. Or has everybody got to come in on the 6th lap for the first fuel tank? Well, meanwhile, you can see they're all coming on through, but in fact, Kerry Kokorin was thinking about going longer, but decided not to, cut across the pit entry line. I wonder whether that might be a black flag for Kokorin, given the fact they did cut the pit entry. We'll have to wait and see. But meanwhile, X in the pits right now. There's Reece Saunders ahead of Håkon Grebstad, and it's going to be Ryan Davies who jumps ahead of Joe Newman, nose to tail here, and Newman having a long pit stop compared to Davies, and Davies right now leapfrogging his way into P3. Newman immediately on the offensive here, going on to stint number 2. Side by side they go through the Dunlop chicane, and will Davies here costing Newman time, and Newman goes around the outside. It's a bold move from Joe Newman, but Newman's not here to finish third. He's here to win, and as they make the way on down, you see Tillin right now with the back of Davies, and Tillin has taken that fast repair as we ride on board. You can see this is what Toa driver itching to make his way through as they head up towards Tetra Rouge, and into the right hand they go, nose to tail through the corner, but he can't find a way through Cantelli as they now make the way onto the back stretch. As he builds his way up through the gearbox here, well, the bi-turbo V8 on the McLaren absolutely roaring now as he heads up towards top speed, and as he does, well, now it's all going to be about here how the two teammates want to work this out, who they want to be the lead driver and how they want to close Newman down. But heading all the way in towards the braking zone here, Newman right now does not want them to get the toe. You can see that he's putting the car off race line and then snatching it back for the braking zone. Newman wants to be away from this. He feels as though he's been outdone by the strategy now, and he wants to go hunting. And well, with Grebstad and Saunders only 2.5 seconds up the road, you can completely understand why he's on the charge. But meanwhile, further back, it's 3 wide here, going on to Mulsanne, and this is a 3-way battle for what is effectively P14 in this race. In fact, P15 this race. Brandon Hay getting ahead there of what is Daniel Pace. P16 was Satinder Deansa just in front, and Strand behind as they make the way on down and into the braking zone for the first chicane. They're going Hay defending here as he's clearing Pace for what is P6 in class, and as they make the way through, we show you those class standings once again. And well, behind them, Matt Strand right now all over the back of Hayes, trying to find his way on in, but can he do so? That's the question. It looks as though it's going to be whether he's got the run on the very end towards Indianapolis. He doesn't want to look for the move right now. Meanwhile, Aaron McGregor, they're trying to drag race his way past Casper Tunstead, just gets ahead and cuts in. He didn't, I don't think he reckoned that he could do it at first, but he saw the gap and he's gone for it. But as they make the way into the braking zone, McGregor defending it and trying to get there to Trina Tunstead, which is don't battle me, let me take this place and I will pull us up to the next part of the road. And that's going to be Matt Strand, who's only got John Doble for cover between them. And as they make the way up towards what is the Mulsanne corner now, well, it's definitely been a pit stop season aplenty. And speaking of pit stops, there's contact there between Darren Sharples and Richard Jones under braking. Well, they settled the differences between the two, but that is Sharples gaining P4 in the Pro class over Jones after a switch. And well, as they make the way, we've lost Martin Tillin at the team. We've also lost Jack Wyborn from towards the front of the field. I'm not quite sure what's happened to them. We're just getting some data coming through. But meanwhile, looking at the very front of the Pro class here, that's Chris Kirkland on the right of your picture, winner from last time out, and Casper Broughton on the left, and Broughton tucks in. Chris Kirkland takes the lead of the Pro class here, and Kirkland with an incredibly short pit stop. He only had a 10-second stop. Chris Kirkland has leapt his way all the way out the order. Now, I wonder what the strategy is for the 112 driver. In the fact, with only a 10-second pit stop, whereas everybody else had on average a 20 to 22-second pit stop, some creeping to 18 seconds through fuel saving. Well, Kirkland right now in a very light car is running away, and you can see that in the fact this Porsche right now is light on fuel. I wonder whether our drivers are banking on there being a short stint right at the end of this race, and Kirkland's pulled that stint forward to take the lead, and therefore essentially give himself some time to break away. And well, when he comes out the pits, he'll go right towards the back of the field, but he'll have track position in terms of a clearer space in front of him. No pressure from behind, and therefore he can just gain the places on an offset strategy. This could be a worthy gamble from the 1-2 driver. We'll have to wait and see if that's what it is in practice, or whether something's gone wrong and they've underfueled the car. But as they make the way on through, meanwhile, Alan Lever has found his way past Casper Brotner as they head onwards towards what is the forward chicanes. And well, as they do, we have had a couple of incidents which we were talking about only moments ago. And well, this is what happened to Martin Tillin earlier on in the lap. When the battle for P4 here with Ryan Davies coming down to the braking zone for Mulsanne, hot on the brakes, a little bit deep on the brakes, and contact there with the rear of Davies' car. And that looks as though it was netcode contact from the pictures. Tillin's front bumper not in contact with the rear of Davies, but I suspect some netcode there, so the two cars came into contact, and Tillin really come off the worst there. and I wouldn't be surprised if Davies didn't feel that on the car whatsoever. And then only months later we had an incident for Jack Wyborn, and this was coming out of Moles and chicane 2. Goes a bit wide and the car unsettled there, tries to get the power down, and you see that car going wayward and in contact there with Alexander Trevino McAllister, who tried to go around the outside of the wayward TPA Racing Porsche, and it's just not been TPA Racing's second half of the season. Stephen Park Hamilton, his teammate, not here today, found a lot of difficulty over the last couple of rounds, and now Jack Wyborn experiencing those difficulties as well, and Trevino McAllister having to be towed to the pits as a result of that contact. Very unfortunate. But meanwhile, as we return back to your live pictures here, ladies and gentlemen, Lever right now with Casper Brotner behind for P2 in the Pro class. Kirkland is already 3.5 seconds clear, but we believe that Kirkland is on a very offset strategy in terms of the amount of fuel he's got in the car. It's minimal. So, and Lever right now, technically your strategic leader until we have confirmation as to exactly what's happening with Kirkland. But as they make their way into the first chicane, you can see Sharples and Jones about 3 seconds behind and itching to get into this fight as Lever goes a bit deep, brings the car roughly back onto the tarmac in terms of the racing whip tarmac as he makes way down, just misses a slowdown penalty from him. That Jack Wyborn is into the pit for the damage picked up in that contact with Alexander Tremino McAllister, and as Lever makes his way on down towards the second chicane now for Lever here, I think will feel as though he's got the overspeed in the Lamborghini Huracan Evo, but the thing he may not have is the cornering capabilities of that Porsche. And meanwhile, behind the battle of the two Porsche, there's Jones pinning out to the inside versus Sharples on the inside, and it's going to be what is a run on through, and in the end Jones goes inside to outside, gets it done, and Sharples not fully committing to the defence now. I think Sharples playing the long game, which is being cognizant of the fact they've got a long way to go. They're only half an hour into this 1.5 hours race, and indeed right now fuel saving is going to be the factor if you want to make strides on strategy. As they head down towards Mulsanne corner, meanwhile looking from them back up to third place. We see here Joe Newman and Ryan Davies sharing some real estate together on the TV screens as they make their way onwards towards what will be the Indianapolis complex, and as they do, well, Newman right now not able to close up that gap to Gustad. If anything, that gap is opening, and the Empire Motorsport driver now trying to clutch at straws here to find a way to get back in. Davies staying with him and keeping him honest. I think Joe Newman here would just appreciate being given time to try and find a way to get back into the hunt. But as they make their way on towards the Porsche curves, meanwhile as they charge them through, we look back to Ryan Walker, P5 right now, the elite class driver, Satellite Racing, feeling as though it's all coming together little by little. As he heads up towards the next set of corners, he is currently 3.6 seconds off of the battle for P3, and therefore he'll want to get closer. But again, Davies might be playing what is a bit more of an aggressive game with Newman in order to get Newman to use excess fuel, and I think Davies will be trying to push him along, so they may use fuel in excess, the pair of them. Meanwhile, Ryan Walker, with no tow right now, really just has to try and work this one out in terms of a bit of a lonely strategy here. In fact, he's got nobody to fuel save off of, and therefore he's got to do any fuel saving by himself. And Martin Tilling closing up here after Tilling's instant only moments ago. Meanwhile, we do look back to Newman versus Davies. Davies on the inside here, fully commit, and Ryan Davies absolutely pouring it out on the brakes there and gets down to the forward chicanes. A stellar move from Ryan Davies, and well, with that moves up into P3, Newman going quite slowly there, and well, we take a look back at that move. Making their way out the corner and into the forward chicanes here. You can see Newman braking quite early there for the chicanes, and Davies just going all in, and it seems though they're in a different ballpark in terms of relative speeds, and Davies absolutely full send and commitment there to take the place. As we return it to your live pictures, meanwhile into the pit lane, we suspected he had to come in soon. Chris Kirtland for Downforce Racing comes into the lead for the Pro class. Now, was it an error on strategy, or is this a sign of something to come in terms of them potentially taking a short stint, which will be the end of the race, and now opting to go for a major stint here? We'll have to wait and see, but whilst he's parked up in the pit lane, meanwhile, other drivers coming on through, including Aaron McGregor, as he heads up to P8 in the Pro class. John Dogan Casperton said just behind, as they head through the Dunlop curve and up towards the chicane now, onto the brakes from McGregor, and Kirkland leaving the pit lane once again. And from Chris Kirkland, well, I can tell you he's now taken a full pit stop, 21 second stationary time, so fuel has got in the car. He'll come out of the very back of what is the Pro class in terms of our remaining Pro class runners. He's in what is P24 overall, the P11 in class, in fact P25 now, with Matt Edmondson finding his way on Pro. But the point being that Kirkland now has given himself the track position we talked about earlier, and here he is once again. And well, I think he'll feel as though now he can make a lot further progress in terms of just being able to deliver those lap times without any distractions. But as he heads on down through at the S's here, we do have a further battle going on between Tillin and Walker in the battle for P5 overall and P5 in the elite class. Still on the right of your picture, now coming across the race line to cover off what is Walker as I head into the second part of the Molten Straight chicane sequence. And it was a clear second chicane. Now the Briton finds his way on through. And up towards the Molten corner they go now, and Tillin with his car repaired, you would imagine now he's going to be a bit of a speed demon, and will his last lap a personal best, a 55.35, and will the fastest lap of this race thus far is a 55.07 as set by Rhys Saunders, so therefore Tillin not far off the race leading pace, and the fastest lap pace with it. In fact, Tillin right now is the fastest driver on circuit. Nobody else is going as fast as him, all the way from the very front to the very back of the field, and that goes to show you just how much Tillin wants to take this win in the McLaren. Indeed, we'd love to see that McLaren on the top step once again. As they head on down towards Indianapolis here, meanwhile looking from them, we do have a replay coming up with regards to what happened to Aaron Herbert in the early stages of this race. But see, on lap number 4 we saw his car in the wall at Indianapolis, and here's the replay. Whereas on the run down towards Indianapolis here, and ahead of what was, I believe, Ryan Moles under braking, Herbert loses the rear, and well, the car into the barrier and just becomes a passenger in the car. Then I suspect the initial impact of the barrier completely caused the suspension to collapse, and also the braking system on that right side. And well, Herbert in the end just a passenger, and a nightmare incident of that for Aaron Herbert. And well, the car in the pits, I do believe it is a car now which has had to retire. In fact, we have had a few retirements in this race, and what we can reel them off for you in terms of the fact we've had 4 retirees. Our most recent retiree being Chris Constable in the Pro class, also Alexander Trevino McCalson, in fact, who's in the pit lane at the moment. He's not retired from this race, we should clarify, but he is taking an extended pit stop, most likely for tow time, and then for repair work to the car. He is in a P30, and then we do have the 2 confirmed retirements of BJ Alvarez, the AM driver, and Aaron Herbert, the Pro driver, who we saw the replay only moments ago of. And as for BJ Alvarez, you may remember that impact with the ball coming out the Porsche curves. We believe that is what has caused him to retire from this race. But meanwhile, on your live pitch there, ladies and gentlemen, and as we continue to make our way towards the end of the first half of this race, we now are into the window where things have settled down to a degree in terms of on-track battling, albeit one man who's not settling down is second place man Håkon Grebstad over in the elite class, in the fact that right now setting the fastest lap of the race a 54.943, and we're going for broke here with regards to Rhys Saunders. And we do have to keep in mind that for Grebstad, he needs the win here today in order to keep those title defence aspirations alive versus Røseth. In the fact we have 3 rounds remaining, and drop scores are now in effect, but with the number of wins that Røseth has picked up this season versus Grebstad, right now it is looking as though the title is going more and more in the favour of what is the Racing Lab Esports AM driver. I almost said the Norwegian driver, and then you'd be asking me which one, as both Grebstad and Røseth hail from Norway. But right now the Ignition Motorsport driver of Grebstad needing to find a win here versus Rhys Saunders, but at the same time Saunders very eager to take victory for himself, to follow up from that victory at Motorland Aragon. And as they make their way down towards the first chicane, will now Grebstad all in the tow and set to go. But as we get right aboard and look back in the rear of Rhys Saunders' car, the key point being here is that I think Rhys Saunders right now knowing that Grebstad is just siphoning fuel off of him and using the tow. As they make their way onto the second part of the Molten Straight, Saunders right now absolutely on with the precipice here. So I think having to think about what will be his strategy, given the fact he's really been used as the fuel-saving barge for Grebstad to follow on through. And we do say hello there to Erik Røseth in the YouTube chat. It says saying hi from the grandstand side, and great to have you tuned in, Eric. I'm sure you've got a bit of an itch to be out and circuit here, battling with your main championship rivals, but still the same. We're always happy to have you tuned in and hope you're doing well. But as we do see our top 2 here, still falling well over the nose, sparks flying up there from the underplate of Saunders' car. We've gone over the exit curve there. Meanwhile, further back we do have Newman versus Davies, and Joe Newman in fact making the move count there versus Davies. It's going quite slowly out the second chicane. I think there might have been an error for Davies. We will take a look back at that in a brief moment as they charge their way onto the Molten corner. But definitely uncharacteristic there, and that gap opened up quite significantly. It's either a mistake or a slowdown. And as they head into the braking zone, well, let's find out. Making their way on through the chicane. Davies there, immediate race line. I think it may have been a slowdown there for Davies, and he's had to surf essentially track limits going into the corner, alternatively at the previous chicane. As we now return it back to your live pitch here, ladies and gentlemen. Martin's inching closer to his fellow TSimSport driver, albeit he won't want what happened last time to occur, that netcode contact between the two cars. Seeing Tilling going around at Arnage. Well, not at Arnage, my apologies, at Mulsanne corner, we should say. And as they get ready for the next braking zone, right now, nothing between them, but Martin Tilling definitely trying to fly true to the pace of the car. And as they make their way out of Indianapolis, Ryan Walker still there in the rear of the picture, with then a further 13 seconds to Ryan Bowles. But as they come through, I mean, we'll look back to Kerry Kokorin. And Kokorin here, the downforce racing driver, still close behind James Connolly, and really splitting the two AM drivers of Connolly and Barshuk as they head in towards the braking zone for Mulsanne themselves. And the Rexy Mobile there, still watching on versus Connolly, and still trying to stay with the Ferrari driver, understandably eager to try and get in the tyre of that Ferrari and use it to pull it a bit further up the field. But as they head all the way up towards what will be the Indianapolis corner shortly, our drivers now eager to push on with that strategy. And again, at this point in the race, you may be wondering what exactly happens with drivers and strategy, because as a racing driver, your main focus is delivering lap after lap and pushing on as hard as possible. But in these longer races, you do have to think about potentially not making a move, but instead sticking behind, as Barshuk does that there. Although I think trying to say to Kokorin, look, you need to be mindful of the fact I'm very eager to make some progress. But meanwhile, speaking of progress, let's interrupt our thoughts for a minute. Reece Saunders into the pits from the lead of this race. And well, that's a little bit earlier than we anticipated. Given our first pit stops, we're 24 minutes in at the end of what was lap number 6. Well, now Saunders making his way down, and that's the end of lap number 10. Grebstad goes on. Well, I wonder here whether Saunders is trying to do an undercut and give himself some clear track, but in fact, with 21 seconds being the relative gap, as we show you the overall standings, well, if you take 22 seconds of Grebstad to lead at the moment, that would put him at the end of the elite top 7. In fact, yes, that would work out for Saunders if he's able to get that car out, but I suspect it's going to be much longer. In fact, it will be about 35 seconds lost in the pit lane, and this will cost him dear. It's going to put him right in amongst all the pro drivers making their way on through. And in fact, we do have Jones making his way up there, and there will be Sharples behind who's going to get close, but I think Darren Sharples is not close enough to really interfere with Reece Saunders. So Saunders going for a gamble on an undercut. He's going to have really invested here in doing this, and this may cost Saunders the win. So he ends up getting caught up in traffic here. He's going to lose a lot of time, and with that, Grebstad right now may feel as though with the fuel he's been able to save behind Saunders, he can just simply jump ahead and then not look back. But meanwhile, speaking of not looking back, this is Newman versus Ryan Walker, and as they head in towards the braking zone for Mulsanne chicane 1, well, Newman has fallen a bit further back over the last lap, and we do believe that that may have happened due to a slowdown. In fact, it's happened at the start of this lap after they batting for effective P2. And meanwhile, just in front on our foreground of the camera shot, now the focus of our cameraman's attention is Davies versus Tilling. And well, these two sizing one up here into the braking zone. I think Tilling's going to be given all the space to the inside and more, as Davies there putting two wheels beyond the spotted line. And well, as they make the way down, I think Davies there saying to Tilling, just take it please, let's not have what happened last time we tried to do this. And as they make the way through the second Mulsanne chicane and on towards Mulsanne corner, well, Tilling takes P2. And now can the McLaren find its way up to Grebstad with 7.5 seconds up the road. We'll have to wait to see as they head on down, but as they do, meanwhile, we've got plenty of foot further down the order, including here a little bit of a squabble between pros and AMs. As we can see, here's Barshuk the AM ahead of Kokorin the pro, followed by Kirkland the pro, and then we do have Doble the AM behind, so it is the AM sandwich with plenty of pro filling as they head on through the first chicane, and the two downforce of racing teammates here right in the middle of it all, trying to negotiate each other and negotiate the AM drivers around them. Well, this is definitely a difficult prospect for them, but again, we do have the question with Kirkland having made 2 pit stops already with a very short refuel in the first pit stop. What is Kirkland's plan? And well, meanwhile, we can tell you that with regards to Reece Saunders, it's a 15-second stop, so Saunders taking a relatively short stop as well to get himself back out there, but plenty of foot on strategy here, and we'll have to wait and see how it all plays out in the long haul as we reach the halfway point of our first endurance race round of the season here in season 11 of the UKSimRacing GT3 League. Going right now, eager to push on here as they make the way up towards Mulsanne, and well, will we see a potential move here coming from John Doble's getting closer and Kokorin falling back, which you can see there Kirkland able to break away immediately. Kokorin defending the middle of the road here, Doble thinking about it, but not really close enough here to try and force or intimidate a move, but then again takes a little peek to the middle of the road. Kokorin thinks about flexing over to the middle to cover him off, but then realising no, that's just bait, and as they make the way out of that turn at number 15, Kokorin not falling for the bait, but instead simply staying on the run. As they charged away out towards turns 18, 19, heading towards Indianapolis soon. Barjak, meanwhile, under increasing pressure from Kirtland. Kirtland's going to look up the inside. Lefty of pictures Kirtland. Barjak on the right. The Rexy Mobile here, given all the space. I think cognizant of the fact it's a pro on the inside of the AM driver now. He doesn't need to fight it. So they swap places. Meanwhile, Kokorin still holding Doble at bay. Doble's really eager, I think, to try and get on through. And well, meanwhile, whilst this is all happening, let's not forget, we do have a battle for the lead of the AM class here. That's your AM leader, Stuart Pearson. And then behind the line, steady racing drives T. Simsport Towers, Satinder Dinsa, who's just found his way past Marvin Cruz for what is P2 in the AM class. They make the way through the Porsche curves. Wonderful camera angle there to give you the sense of speed as they tear the way on through and heading on around and up towards turn number 27 they go. Meanwhile, we take a look back at how the move was made for second place by Dinsa. We can see heading down towards the second milestone chicane and Cruz on the outside the racing line there. Dinsa looking on the inside onto the brakes. They both went side by side into the corner, and well, Dinsa in the end just getting the move done and not looking back, just looking straight ahead, and that's the way you get it done. As we turn to live pictures now, meanwhile, we still do have more playing out as Tilling and Davis swap places once again. And well, that will be on the run onto the miles down straight, and I believe Martin Tilling may have slowed down at the front of the field. We're trying to get confirmation on that. But in meanwhile, we do have also some pits that line up. Daniel Hayes into the pit lane as I look at my commentating booth window. And well, as we look back to the class standings for the time being, now that we are into the second half of this race, where it does seem as though we've got plenty of pit stops now being overlaid on top of one another and strategies that are not lined up. We pretty much saw the entire field pit on what's the 24th minute on the end of lap number 6 of the starters race to mark the first pit stop. And now we do have this big question of who is taking what fuel and with it what strategy our drivers on. We've seen some very short pit stops by some drivers, we've also seen some very long pit stops. But meanwhile, we see Brandon Payne here trying to make it the long way round the outside of Darren Sharples. He does so. Sharples tucks in. Hay brings it to the middle of the road. And Sharples trying to round the outside in return now into the first mile down the chicane. Can't quite find it. Hay there takes plenty of apex going into the chicane. Unsettles the rear of the BMW slightly. But that won't perturb them too much. They now make the way onwards towards what will be the second chicane, but nose to tail they go here. And as they do, well, on the long charge, and as they head towards the next braking zone, I think Hay and Sharples will be both thinking that Richard Jones is only 1.7 seconds ahead. There's a third place on the cards here in the Pro Class. They really want to fight each other for it. That's the big £100 question, if you will. And as I head in to the left-hander, we do say hello there in the YouTube chat to Thomas Ashpal, who says Rosevich has been kind with the others, letting them have some glory as well. Well, that's definitely one way to look at it there. And again, all of the comments being in good banter and in good spirit in the UKSimRacing and GT3 League. A great spirit down in the paddock, I must say, between all the drivers. And well, meanwhile, two teammates here who can't get enough of side by side. And we'll till in this time on the inside of Davies. And TE Simsport Kimmy takes the place. Meanwhile, behind Newman on the inside there of Walker takes P4 back in the elite class. And Walker right now definitely getting stuck in here versus Newman as they head in towards Arnage Corner. As they come into the right-hander, that Lamborghini Huracan Evo falling away a little bit in the first half of this race compared to its peers, compared to its qualifying pace, but again, that should take nothing away from Newman, who definitely has secured those bonus points of pole position, and well, I think took the world by storm with regards to that pole lap, as the Empire Motorsport driver here looks on to 3.5 seconds distance to Davies. Meanwhile, 3 attempts ahead of Walker, and right now, it does seem as though Newman and Walker in a bit of a locked heat as they roll off-road. As they head all the way up towards what will be the left-hander here of turn number 26 and then 27, 28 they go. Well, these drivers here absolutely eager to push on as much as they can, and well, with the position they have at the moment, we'll have to wait and see whether it plays out more on strategy as time goes on. But meanwhile, Håkon Grebstad is in to the pits from the lead of this race from the elite class and overall, and Martin Tin and Ryan Doe's in the same as well. They've come in on the 49th minute. That is the end of lap 12, so that lines up with expectations here. They're just doing this based on maximum fuel tank stints at the moment, but that doesn't preclude what could be what could be an opportunity to do shorter stints later on. Now, if we do the quick mathematics here as everybody comes on down, if we take 24 minutes, or say 25 a stint because of pit stop time effectively, so you take 2 25-minute stints, that's 50 minutes, add that on 75 minutes, we are expecting our drivers to make at least one short stop in this race to get to the end of the 90 minutes. But meanwhile, here's the danger man, and it's Team Year 1's Reece Saunders right now, and as he makes his way across the timeline, the 64 driver who opted for an earlier pit stop here. Will he take the leader's race back? He will, but how much of a gap will he get? Now Grebstad will be hoping he can get close, but he doesn't, and Saunders in fact goes on through to retake the lead, and Reece Saunders now leading by what will be almost 7 seconds going into the Dunlop chicane. And will Grebstad back up to speed now. He's got what is a 6.5 second gap to Davies, in fact that's 7.5 seconds now, but the point being here that Reece Saunders on an offset strategy, and I think he's effectively taken what would be his final pit stop of the race if you did everything in maximum fuel tank time and time again. I think he's taken that stop early to now jump ahead, and he'll be trying to push on here to break away from the rest of the field, albeit we'll have to wait and see how the times play back later on. But the rest of the field's into the pits now, and meanwhile Chris Kirkland here up the inside of Ryan Moles. And Kirkland taking a much earlier pit stop compared to his peers as well. So we are seeing that multitude of pit stops playing out as they head on through here and up towards what will be turn number 5, 6 now. We do say hello there to also Damon Black and Jay Winks in the YouTube chat there. Apologies for missing you both earlier on. But as they head on through here, it definitely does seem so. Brad tries doing everything right now to work out the strategies of one another, but as we do see our drivers charging on around, meanwhile we do see that Damien Black saying the pit limiter was on, but the car still sped up to 65, so 40-second penalty for nothing. That's very unfortunate there for you, Damien, and well, we do hope you can have some better luck in the next round. As our drivers charge on through. Meanwhile, we do now look towards the second half of the race, and strategy proving ever more vital here in terms of how our drivers line up versus one another and who's going to be fighting for those podiums when it all is said and done. But Kirkland right now with Moles behind, just trying to push on here. We believe that Kirkland is due for a pit stop sometime soon, given the fact he did take his second pit stop a bit earlier compared to the rest of his peers. But meanwhile, further behind, we jump on board here with Brandon Hay from Newbridge Esports as he chases after Richard Jones P4 in the pro class. As they make the way down the straight here and up towards the second chicane. Well, the thing for Brandon Hay at this point is in the toe, and well, he'll have every opportunity to look for that move, but will he be able to find it? Will he have to wait when he peels to the inside there? It's going to be side by side and heading on down in towards the braking zone here. I think Hay will have what he needs. He pulls back onto the race line, and Jones here not really able to fight it. The BMW very strong on those straight line sections, and therefore the Porsche 9 and 2 just carrying it away to the wings. But as they come out of the second chicane and up towards Mulsanne corner they go. Well, Jones here will be back in the toe. It's 2 temps in the toe and gaining little by little as they head all the way through towards the braking zone here. But it's such a long run. But will Jones have enough on the brakes, or will the BMW just simply be able to outrun him to the braking zone? I think it will be the latter at the moment. But again, there will be one more opportunity, but Jones will need to have a stellar exit off the corner if he wants to get close. And with 4 attempts, there isn't really going to be good enough. As meanwhile, we had an instant for Martin Tilling up the road, and what is our Nigel Indianapolis corner 1 and 2 from our data telling us. We'll get a replay of that very shortly in the elite class. But meanwhile, you can see Brandon Hay here just pulling away despite the Porsche being in the toe. And as much as Jones will be huffing and puffing that car, I think he'll be trying to rock it back and forth in the chair to say, give me an extra mile an hour speed. In the end, it's just not enough, and that BMW of Newbridge Esports is just able to stay safe. As they come down into Indianapolis onto the race. Meanwhile, we take a look back at what exactly happened to Martin Tilling, who's now dropped down to P6 in the elite class. This was Tilling in the McLaren making his way into Indianapolis on the brakes here, gets it nicely hooked up initially, but the rear of the car goes on around there, and I think the direction change of the car and the momentum shift with it just not letting the car settle down in enough time, and therefore Tilling going around there, but no major damage to the car. He will have made the tyres very hot with the slide, and therefore the TE6 Kimmy driver will just need to give them time to cool them down. But as we return to your live pictures here, ladies and gentlemen, well, 40 minutes still remaining, and well, battles are plenty abound here as the strategies continue to weave in and out. And meanwhile, as we do look from the battle for P4 in the pro class to our P3 pro driver and level, he's only 3 seconds up the road and going all the way up towards what we've 4 chicanes here. And Lever still trying to chase down Casper Brotner, albeit Chris Kirkland seems to have broken away into a world of his own currently in lead of the pro class by 12.5 seconds. But again, keep in mind that Kirkland's strategy is not the same as those around him. He opted to take an earlier pit stop, well, not an earlier pit stop, let's say an earlier second stop, we should say, with a very short first stop. And that means that we believe that Kirkland is on the reverse strategy of everybody else here today in the Pro class, whereas everybody else has decided to go long for their first couple of stints. And as we said earlier, we are expecting this to be what is effectively a 3-stop race with one pit stop shorter than the other two by approximately 5 to 10 seconds, depending on fuel saving and whatnot. Well, it will mean that we'll have to see how Kirkland fits back in once he does take his final pit stop, which will put him towards probably the middle of the Pro class, but then it's how the other drivers will be on lighter cars at that point will be able to make up the time. And as Lever makes his way on to Mulsanne, Councillor Brotner just ahead there, and Brotner right now still holding favour, a bit losing on that last lap, almost 2 seconds to Lever, so losing some pace here as Mio into the pits has come at Jack Wyborn. And well, we can confirm the retirement we did see is from Daniel Pace, who I do believe is Daniel Black in the YouTube chat there, and well, he adds his name as our 5th retirement of today. But always, we still have 27 runners out here, but our drivers we have had retire are Daniel Pace, Chris Constable, Alexander Trevino-Wachowson, and Aaron Herbert in the Pro class, and in the M class, BJ Alvarez. Meanwhile, as the racing carries on and we look back to Aaron McGregor tucked in behind Stuart Pearson here, your AM leader of Pearson right now, running a very strong race here in the BMW M4 and just seemingly able to steer clear, albeit still the Dinsa comes on little by little, but McGregor, your P7 Pro driver here, eager to make some headway in the Ferrari 488 Evo as it peels out on the right of your picture, albeit camera will transition very shortly, and as it does, well, you can see it that McGregor now clear ahead as Pearson tucks in behind the Ferrari, and well, the Scotsman here not gaining a class position, just gaining an overall position. This next target will be Darren Sharples, so it's 2.2 seconds up the road, and with Sharples it will be P6 in the Pro class. And McGregor now hunting at places, he's giving himself all the space in the day to do so. He's got plenty of time to do so, albeit I think the one thing that will confound him is the fact that he is currently effectively 12 to, well, it's 15 seconds down on where we believe the race leader of Kirkland or Brotner will be when this race comes to the end of all of its pit stops. But again, we'll have to wait and see. So could McGregor potentially win this day or have an opportunity at winning it? Yes, but he's got to go some, and he's really got to rely now on no mistakes whatsoever, and that Pearson behind does not interfere, as Pearson in fact gained the toe there, and will shoot Pearson just simply sailing on through on the inside here. And McGregor right now, well, I don't think he's going to have any which way about this. He is going to have to deal with the AM leader wanting to take their place back as they head onwards towards Indianapolis. Side by side on past our cameraman there and in towards the braking zone, and Pearson tucks in ahead, and that gap up to what is there 4 tenths before they enter will be the lift off the braking zone, and therefore that goes to show you the strength of that BMW on the straights as Pearson gets it a little bit wrong and deep there. McGregor now looking around the outside, and Pearson backs off to respect McGregor, making his way into the corner, but Pearson carrying a bit too much speed down. I think the toe and the natural overspeed of the BMW M4 into Indianapolis may have just pulled him out a little bit, but Dinsa now closing more the gap down to 2 seconds, and Pearson's got to be wary of the TE Sport tyre number 10 in the simple fact that right now Dinsa is putting in the laps and he is closing little by little. With that last lap, Pearson did open up the gap by 1.5 seconds, albeit this lap that gap has been brought down dramatically given the mistake. And meanwhile, whilst all this is playing out, into the pit lane has come Chris Kirkland from the lead of the Pro class, and this is the pit stop we were expecting. Now, how will this figure into his strategy? Well, given the fact that we do have what is 34 minutes remaining in this race, if Kirkland can make that final stop go long, this could be a surprise on strategy, but I suspect he will have to do some fuel saving as Catherine Brotner comes on through to take the lead on the Pro class for Old Dudes in Cars of the ODIC team, and Lever just behind them, Brandon Hay. So it's all to play for in the battle for the top 5 place in the Pro class, with the effective top 5 right now separated by only 5 seconds. And well, as we continue to see these battles pushing on, well, Brotner right now, the Danishman here, eager to take victory at Le Mans. He'd love to do it indeed. Who would consider their championship campaign complete without a victory at Le Mans? But Kirkland leaving the pit lane. And it is a standard stop of 22 seconds here. So Kirkland right now putting all the fuel in, but can he get it to the end of the race? That is the question as he makes his way on pit exit. He's down to P9. He is 31 seconds behind the race leader. But given the fact he did have what was a 14-second advantage, that gives us an idea that a pit stop costs you about 45 seconds to 46 seconds maximum here at Le Mans. And Kirkland right now definitely knowing that with this he's now got all the time to make up, albeit on top of that he's also got to save some fuel to avoid one more pit stop. as he makes his way on, rolling through the S's there. Meanwhile, we look back to your overall race leader, Reece Saunders, and I can see, well, Greg Zenhai there saying Reece with the biggest brain move this league has ever seen with regards to his pit stops. We'll have to wait and see if that's what plays out in practice as a team year one driver, but I'm inclined to agree with you there, Greg, in the YouTube chat, for the simple reason that right now Saunders absolutely delivering laps consistently in what is the high 54s and low 55s. Last lap was a 55.0, and with these laps right now is gaining time by the dozen versus Håkon Grebstad, and this may just give Saunders what he needs here in order to add another win to his name. But meanwhile, looking from him to what is a bit further down the order, back to McGregor. Well, McGregor has already caught up to Sharples in the battle for P5 in the Pro class. The Pro Tech Motorsport driver there up the inside of Sharples, and immediately goes away into the second Mulsanne chicane. A little bit of wobble there in corner exit, but nothing is going to cause him to go unstuck. And McGregor gains the place without trouble. Albeit now, Sharples come back in, and right on board and the back of the rear of the Ferrari. Heading in towards the next braking time very shortly. I think the thing for Sharples here is he just has not got a response to that straight line speed of the Ferrari. Indeed, it does seem like if you're in a Porsche here today, you really are limited by what you can do on the straights and the corners. You've got the speed, but even then the Porsche curves proving to catch out many of the mid-engine rear-wheel drive machines, particularly the Porsche 992s, and therefore we are seeing the circuit of the Porsche not on the pace compared to its peers. With 30 minutes to go, anything can happen before that checker flag waves, and you've still got to cross that finish line. And all the drivers will be very wary of that. But meanwhile, we look from the battle for P5 in the Pro class to the battle here for what is P8 overall, when in fact it is the lead of the Pro class that's been contested here. It's Casper Brotner ahead of Adam Lever, and Lever has caught up as they make the way on through the on-arch corner, and through the right-hander they go, and onwards towards the Porsche curve. You can see Brandon Hayes not too far back either, and also Richard Jones is closing as new fastest lap overall this race at 54.333 from Reece Saunders, who is absolutely storming at the front of the field. The laps just continue to trickle on down, but coming back to the focus of our cameraman's attention here, Lever right now really gaining on Brotner, whose pace, to be fair, is by no means slouching behind the rest of them. But the problem is that right now he's got a Lamborghini Huracan Evo that is very thirsty for a win, and Lever would love to be on that top step if his first win in UKSimRacing GT3 League career. And as he makes his way on through the Corvette curves, Brandon Hay also eager to pick up his first win of this season as they head onwards towards the Ford chicanes. And well, this top two separated by 2 seconds nose to tail, and then Jones only a further 2.5 seconds behind. The Sloan Steady racing driver could yet get involved, and the same for McGregor, who's only 4 seconds back. So we have got a pro top 7 effective. We don't know what Chris Kirtland will factor into this, but presumably he does. We've got 7 drivers back to the podium, if not the win, right now in the Pro class, and they're all very close as Lever sets a new personal best of 57.368. Alan Lever right now is tearing up the tarmac here at Le Mans, and as he makes his way through the Ford chicane, we have not through the Ford chicane, through the Dunlop chicane we should say, we ride on board here with the UKSimRacing Price driver. Now with the next round of pit stops back in approximately what will be about 10 minutes time, keeping in mind of course that our drivers may opt to split the final 2 stints of this race, so they've taken 2 long stints initially, so maximum fuel tank stints, so the race opener plus the second stint, of which they're now on to stint number 3. They can opt to bring forward that last pit stop slightly, so they don't have to run the entire fuel tank to the last drops, but instead they can pit a little bit earlier and then spread the amount of fuel across the final 2 stints. And whoever does that maybe give themselves a bit of a mini undercut here, albeit the laps in just shy of 4 minutes across the classes. It does mean that you're very limited in your options. We may see drivers split across what will be 2 pit stop laps, and we would reckon as a result really there's going to be a 4 to 6 minute pit window where we'll see the strategies play out, and then those who are on a very different strategies such as Kirkland will have to feed the way into them. As we see Lever make his way on the toe here, moving his way all the way towards maximum RPM. We do say hello to Thomas Cope there, says a big bong and good evening. See Mr. Cope, I hope you're doing well. But right now we stay on board here with Lever. You can see there in the rear view mirror TV at the top centre of your screen, well there is a very small pair of headlights that are getting closer and closer, and that is Brandon Hay. And what he should say that on the television objects may appear farther than they seem. Well right now I can tell you one thing, that Brandon Hay is getting closer by the corner and very eager to start to dip his toes into this battle. But as they head on towards Molzad very shortly in terms of the right-hander. Well, these three now all together, and keep in mind that they may have different agendas here. We've got Brandon Hay coming in now. Does Hay close up this and then think about potentially splitting off and going for an undercut early? He won't be in the window to do it at the end of this lap, because we will still have 26 minutes remaining plus the final lap, which will be a bit too much of a risk, but he may do at the end of lap number 17 have that option available to him. And when the drivers in front decide to carry on, Hay might want to pull himself out of this run of cars, but we've got to be aware of the fact there will be a lot of traffic behind with that 40 will be about somewhere in the region, we reckon, of about 35 to 45 seconds in the pits in terms of 14 to end pit stop time. But as Hay makes his way on down, and that's 45 seconds lost or gained, we should say, at the pit lane. But meanwhile, Hay right now getting very close, in fact looming large, and well, as they make the way through the right-hander, turns 18 into 19. So you right now, if you're a fan of motorsport meme culture, maybe thinking of the BMW M4 GT and the infamous gifs of it being enlarged coming over the rise of the Dunlop curve. And I can imagine right now that both Brotner and Lever will be looking in their rearview mirrors and seeing that menacing front grille of the BMW M4 GT3, and perhaps getting a few flashbacks towards the M8 GT meme of past years. But going from memes to motorsport racing here live on your television screen right now, well, Saunders is in to the pits on the lead of this race, and that is a big pit stop that's occurring as I look at my commentator booth window, and it's the pit stop that could potentially shake up things with regards to the elite class when all is said and done. But then we look back here from the rear of Brotner's car, and as Brotner rolls his way now into the Corvette curves, imagine that direction change and the weight shift on the board, which has brought out so many here so far today. What he exits the corner and on towards what is the forward chicanes here. Will we see a glimmer of a pit stop from any of this top three, or will they all carry on to lap 17? We reckon they need to carry on, and indeed they do that. They all use the pit lane entry in order to open up the chicanes as much as possible. But right now it is a second that separates the top three in the Pro class, and well, these strategies could not be closer here as they make their way on to the next lap. But as they do, we have Aaron McGregor into the pits as well as he makes his way on down pit entry, and well, coming on through here from P5 in the Pro class, he'll feel as though he's also got an opportunity to get involved in this, but opts in the pit early here, trying to undercut. Meanwhile, we look then to Newman versus Davies. They're effectively, we believe, fighting for P3 in the elite class. Side by side here, the battle of the two German-powered machines. With the Lamborghini, the Italian machine on the left of your picture, but it's a German Audi engine in the rear of it. And as they make their way on into the Molzad chicane, right now we can see Davies there taking the place, but Newman tucking back in and knowing it's not about the first two corners on the straight in terms of the chicanes of the Molzad, nor is it Molzad corner itself. It's the run you get out of Molzad corner and the run into Indianapolis where you need to make that move count. But whilst this is playing out, meanwhile, we do have that battle for the pro lead now in full swing as Lever does take the place of Brotner. Meanwhile, Hayes coming on through here, and Hayes going to try and use the double draft that he picked up on the exit of Tetra Rouge. He's going to take one, he's going to take two. It's going to be Hay on the left of your picture, Lever on the right. As they head in to the braking zone here, can Hay get it done? He can indeed, but now Lever will try and come back at him, but will he be able to find his way back? Feels like that BMW M4 has been so strong in clear air. As they make their way up through the gearboxes here, it is going to be, it's going to be temperamental here from Lever if he can get close enough. 2 tenths is the gap currently, but I don't think he's got enough for a run. He's halfway down the second part of the straight already, now been 1.5 tenths. If he's going to try and force this, he's going to have to really look to lunge it on the brakes. Hay brings it slightly into the centre of the road, I think, trying to say to Lever, don't try it. And as they head onto the brakes, they stay as they were. And coming on through the second chicane, meanwhile into the pit lane, we do have Jack Wyborn coming on in from what will be at the time P26, and well, the P9 AM driver, that's P26 overall, we should clarify. Wyborn deciding to go in slightly early, so they may pick up some more places before all is said and done. But meanwhile, we look from them back to Newman versus Davies, and this is where it matters for Newman, up the inside into Indianapolis, and well, he takes the place there of Davies before they can get to the apex, and Davies just tucks in behind. I think right now the pair of them also aware of the fact they're coming into pit stop territory and they don't want to lose time off of one another. But as we ride on board with Davies, who just misses the exit tyre barrier there, coming out of our nine, using all the corner width he can. We're heading up towards the next braking zone shortly. 4 attempts is the gap between Newman and Davies, and we're heading in towards the next braking zone. Davies there falling behind, but I think opting to stay out of the direct toe now. tyres down a little bit and just let the car come into the curves, getting himself set up potentially for a pit stop here, thinking around his head, what's the best way to cut this race now? Given the fact 22 minutes left on the clock, by the time they get to the pit lane entry, it will be affecting 21 minutes, so therefore we are in prime pit stop window now for those who've taken two longer, earlier starts. We're coming up towards the left-hander here of turn number 27, 28 and 29 are bound now. Well, we're heading in towards what the four chicanes. Do we see why these two peel into the pits? It is neither coming into the pits, they both stay out there. Remember, we are expecting pit stops any time between now and what will be the end of the next 2 to 3 laps. So by the end, what will be lap number 21, we should have seen everybody come into the pits for their scheduled stops, given the way the strategies are played out. But Davies falling away there from Newman, and Newman right now soaring away and looking for that elite podium as a minimum. But meanwhile, into the pit lane has come Martin Tilling from P5 in the elite class and overall. So the McLaren driver goes in early. Moles will come through to take the place, but we believe that we will see the places invert when Moles comes in for his final pit stop. Reece Saunders, meanwhile, bought himself clear track space. In fact, it's coming up behind Moles for a gap of 2.5 seconds. And well, that last lap from Saunders was an outlap of 4:37.0 flat, and that's a very strong outlap there, to be fair. And well, Moles' relative pace is on average about 1.2 to 1.3 seconds slower than Saunders. If we base it on their best laps of the race, albeit that's not a fair comparison, given the fact on different fuel loads and tyre wear ratios at the moment. But the key point being that Saunders should be within about 1.5 to 1.2 seconds of Moles coming in this lap. And if Moles comes on in, then Saunders will have even more air to play with, and it will give Saunders, I think, the confidence that this strategy is really working out in terms of just undercutting very early on in the endurance race. But as he makes his way onwards to the Molesden Straight, meanwhile we do look back to John Doble, the T-Distance Kimi driver from Canada, right now still trying to chase down P5 in the M class off the Barjot. As we see the Rexy Babil making its way ahead of the number 77. And as they head in towards the four chicanes here, it's a long lollygagging of Porsches, and Doble into the pits here, decides to come in, get himself out of the traffic and give himself a little bit of space to play with as everybody else carries on. And meanwhile, well, there goes the Rexy machine number 14, and I think it's going to slow down there for a mistake of the four chicanes, and therefore that's going to cost it a bit of time. But meanwhile, looking from them, we have seen that Anne Lever has just taken the lead of the Pro Class back from Brandon Hay, who had a bit of a slowdown, I think, in the run to the braking zone for the first miles and chicane, so therefore taking that slowdown as quickly as he possibly could, and Lever back into that lead, albeit they do have Casper Brotner behind. And right now, these three inseparable. Keep in mind that meanwhile, our battler from P4 of what was at the time, I do believe, none other. In fact, it's Richard Jones. There we go. I was missing the name on my board, but I can confirm Richard Jones has fallen a bit further back in recent laps in the battle for P4 and potentially the podium of the Pro Class. In fact, we have a replay as to what happened to Richard Jones. It was on the last lap, and this is what happened. Making his way through the four chicanes, and takes too much of the final apex, then unsettles the car completely, and we're almost into the pits there for Jones, but very nice catch on the drift on the grass there to get the car to turn around. And Jones, to be fair, was perhaps quite the catch of the century, and he now makes his way out to speed, which Satinder Dean said there, I think would be too appreciative of Jones being on the exit line there of the chicane, but still they managed to avoid any potential contact. As we return to your pictures now, we can see Hay back in front of Lever here, making the move in to Molesden corner. But this is now going to be the critical point, as it will be Lever who's going to have the overspeed here. He's well inside 1.5 tenths, so he can venture for this as they make their way on towards the second kink before Indianapolis. And well, Lever pulls out. He pulled out too early. Well, Hay cuts across there, cuts off the nose, and as they make their way into the final part, it's going to be side by side for a brief moment, but Brandon Hay can't find a way in, and so it will. In fact, we Lever who can't find a way in, and Brandon Hay will hold off Lever as they make the way through Indianapolis. And meanwhile, behind them as they go into Arnage, Casper Brotner still trying to get close here as they head onto the brakes, but there's no way through for Brotner either, and he's just trying to stay in this. I think Brotner will just be appreciative of the fact he is keeping up with two cars that on the straights have had a good couple of miles an hour in advantage as a minimum, and as they make the way through, Brotner here could yet pull a surprise to the old Dudes and Cars team. If he's fuel saving right now, which he may be able to do a little bit of it given the amount of tow he's being given, he could leapfrog and get in front of them, but then he's got the problem of keeping these guys behind unless he can find a way away from them and get them to battle each other rather than focus on concentrating their efforts into chasing him down. But again, that will be aspirational. He'll take it in terms of how it goes. But meanwhile, into the pits of the final time today on strategy, it's Håkon Grebstad and the rest of the elite class are all pouring on in. But meanwhile, here is what we believe is your effective race leader as Rhys Saunders comes on through to cross the line and go into lap number 19. And with 17 minutes to go here, plus the final lap, where is Grebstad? That's the question, and he's not here. In fact, he's made his way out of the pit lane now. But Rhys Saunders goes on to retake the lead of this race for Team Year One, and this strategy has worked out in absolute sublime fashion for number 64 driver. The undercut has bought him what is effectively 9 seconds of a gap right now to Grebstad. Now keep in mind that Saunders is wearing down the fuel tank, and also on top of that he will put quite a bit of wear into his tyres already on what is this stint. But right now Håkon Grebstad has got to get his car turned on in terms of get it up to temperature once again, and once he's done that, he's then got to close down a 9.2 second gap as it's updated on my timing tower and yours on screen on the left hand side, ladies and gentlemen. It's a 9.2 second gap between the two leaders, and well, Saunders has absolutely nailed this. I think Grebstad's also had a slow down there at Tetrudge. That gap is only opening up more and more. Meanwhile, Chris Kirkland comes on through to take what is the lead of the Pro class back. So Kirkland as well opting to go for an alternative strategy, and it's worked. The only question mark we have over the American strategy, has he got enough fuel to get to the end, because he did pit quite early for his final pit stop and put in a full tank of fuel, and well, that full tank of fuel has got to last in 34 minutes, whereas we've only normally seen it last a driver from 24 to 27 minutes. So Kirkland right now has got to try and find 10 minutes of time, and that's effectively 2 laps worth of fuel as a minimum. It might even be 3 depending on when we go on to the final lap. And right now Downforce Racing have really played a gamble on this one, but if Kirkland can find a way to be able to hold on here, we're going to see 2 phenomenal wins on strategy in the elite and the pro class. But as we see Kirkland heading on down, meanwhile in the AM class, which could not be closer as they've emerged from the pits between Stuart Pearson, who's got a bit of traffic in front of him, and then he does have, and when I say traffic, it's cars that he'll be battling for overall position, and that is Darren Sharples and also Aaron McGregor. But right now his big concern is the BMW M4 behind, obviously in the Dean, so he's battling for the win in the AM class with Pearson. But meanwhile Pearson, they're going 3 wide, or looking to do so between McGregor, Sharples and Pearson as they head on down. McGregor on the left of your picture, it's going to be Sharples in the middle. Pearson backs out, deciding he doesn't want to risk it here given the fact that he could be on course for a win. And meanwhile McGregor versus Sharples is a bit of paint traded between the two of them, but McGregor inside to outside gets it done. But now it's the run on the next straight as we ride on board and look back here from the rear of McGregor's car, and as he builds up the speed you can see Pearson there using the straight line run of that BMW M4 just to gradually try to outpace Sharples, but Sharples with the distance off McGregor's car is able to match him at door rub between the two of them, and they're both getting close. They're both eager to try and get a bit of toe. More rubbing between them now as they into Mulsanne 2's braking zone as they head onto this second chicane. Meanwhile Deedson comes flying in. Oh goodness me, that's contact with Sharples, and Sharples goes across the road there. Deedson moves aside and Pearson takes the place back. We're going to need a replay of that one. That was unexpected, and I wonder there whether Deedson just carried a bit too much speed in what was a double draft, and it's just upset the car under braking. But Sharples coming off the most wounded out of that, and with it Sharples now falls down to the P7 Pro class with Richard Jones taking the place off him. And well, as I try to make the way down towards Mulsanne corner, we'll take a look back at that very shortly. But definitely a very unexpected moment there, and well, we'll have to understand what exactly happened, as right now Pearson with 1.5 seconds to McGregor in front of him. We won't have a tow. Deedson will have the tow by comparison. I think now it'll be all on Pearson here to try and do everything he can. He'll throw every trick in the book to try and keep Deedson behind him at the very end of this race. Making the way up towards what will be turn number 18 shortly, heading in towards Indianapolis. Well, the problem will be for Pearson is, has he got enough here to be able to just simply keep Deedson there, given the fact every time he now tries to defend, Deedson will just naturally regain the straights with the tow. And I think it's going to be for Pearson. He's got to play this fight. He's got to recognise when he can break away versus if he can't break away, then having to play the proverbial slipstream shenanigan game of letting Deedson take the place off him but never losing him. But as they head on down towards the Porsche curves here, well, right now these two continue to break away. Third place Amdriver Marvin Cruz is 8 seconds, almost 9 seconds behind them. and will really now currently the best of the rest is Cruz in the Porsche 992, but Dean's there looking on the inside of Pearson into the Porsche curves. It's going to be side by side on entry. The two of them go in too wide, but it looks like they'll be too wide all the way through now as Dean's backs out and cuts it back, but Pearson sees it coming and just hooks it onto the apex there. Now as they make their way into the Corvette curves, well, Dean's still trying to find his way through as we ride on board with the T-Systems Tower driver into left-hander of turn at number 27. They go, and Pearson runs a bit wide. That could be a slowdown for the slow and steady racing driver. We'll have to wait and see. It is, and it's going to lead to Deanster taking the lead of the pro class here with 12 minutes remain on the clock, albeit Pearson has served the slowdown, so he's going to be very eager now to try and get back in and get as close as possible. But is that it? Is that going to be the one mistake that cost Pearson the opportunity to battle for the win? We'll have to wait and see, but Deanster right now storming away as they head up towards the Dunlop chicane. And as they do so, well, meanwhile, we need to understand what happened as Darren Sharples has had to come into the pits. So the damage he's picked up from that contact from Deanster has definitely led to some breaking on the car. Alternatively, the tyres have been completely knackered from the slide and the overheating that's resulted. But more talking about it, let's take a look back at what exactly happened. Whereas the run on down, and we're right on board with the Deanster. Now remember, he's in the double toe at this point, onto the brake, looks to avoid Sharples, and there was contact. I think Deanster in the end just carrying 1 to 2 miles an hour more speed than he expected, and that is what set it off. We take another look back from the blimp camera here, and well, you'll see, look towards the back of the group, and Deanster there, he can't see the second car, and he's just got simply the overspeed, and in the end, he's tapped the rear of Sharples. Sharples has gone round and just missed what is Pearson, and that's what's led to the events playing out. And for Sharples, it's a race now that has been scuppered for a trip to the pit lane, and therefore he's out of the battle for the top 5. His focus is going to be on trying to battle his way towards the very top end of the outside P5 position. But meanwhile, as we look back to your live pictures, Deanster now trying to break away from Pearson. We'll keep our eyes on that battle with the gap between the two of them, only 7 attempts as they head on down. And meanwhile, we look back to Casper Tunstead. He at 7 in the pro class, trying to keep Matt Strand at bay. And will Strand staying with him for the time being as they head up towards what will be the second chicane in due order. And as they do, the two Porsche drivers here battling against the elements, and knowing that their next target between them is Richard Jones, who is the next pro driver 9 seconds up the road. As they head in towards the next braking zone very shortly. They also do have the AM driver, who's P3 in class, that's Marvin Cruz in front of the bike racing driver, looking to pick up one of his best results of the season as we do look to the number 90 from Germany. And well, Cruz here definitely having a smooth race, not making any major mistakes, and that's really been demonstrated by the consistency he's brought to the table time and time again. But meanwhile, we have had an incident for Kerry Kokorin on what has been the previous lap, and it's led to Kokorin's retirement from this race. And here's what's happened to the downforce racing driver. Albeit connectivity issues there for Kokorin by the looks of things. Oh, goodness me. And, well, that explains what's happened to Steinar Sani, who I think just saw Kokorin rematerialise from the ether at the last moment. And, well, Kokorin there being in the middle of the road, connectivity issues added on. And, well, that's a disaster for Sani and also for Kokorin as we try to see what exactly happened to Kerry Kokorin in the build-up to this. And, in fact, here we do have the replay of Kokorin heading on down to what was, I believe, the Mulsanne corner, unless I'm very much mistaken, into the right hand. In fact, that's the first of the Mulsanne chicanes. We should correct ourselves. Up on the curb and around. I suspect the rear of the car maybe letting go here. No, in fact, nothing so far. So I think it might be a little bit later on. And we take a look further on. And this was down towards what was the Mulsanne corner. And we can see there in the background the battle between Budget and Doble. And then Kokorin just coming to a stop in the middle of the road there, and well, unless the car's run out of fuel, it's just completely gone wrong for Kokorin, and well, that's then led to Steinar Sani coming into the path of the car, and well, a very awkward place to park the car, and it's led to a bit of difficulty as a result. But meanwhile, into the pits is Chris Kirkland from the lead of the pro class, and we were wondering if he could make up 10 minutes of time, and he's miscalculated, and this strategy will release into the pro lead and lever as we hear that Audi roar. And I wouldn't be surprised right now if the UKSimRacing prize garage is absolutely screaming out for the 657 Lamborghini right now. In the fact it's into the lead, it's got a 2.8 second gap to Brandon Hay, and it's trying to bring home its first win, and for Lever, his first win win in his GT3 League career as he makes his way in towards the S's. He's not got long left in this race. He's only got 8 minutes plus the final lap, but he's got to finish this, and well, to finish, you've got to keep it consistent, and Brandon Hay right now will be baring his fangs and knowing that with this battle now, it's not a battle for second place anymore, it's a battle for the win. But as he heads all the way up towards what will be the first of all and chicanes, it's a long run here, and that BMW will hit straight line speed. Remember, Lever is already used to the BMW straight line speed, and he's also played the art of being smart in the draft, so Lever is no stranger to it. And if Hay gets close enough, Lever will give him everything he's got in return. But as they make the way in towards the first chicane, Casper Bronner a bit further back here, 4 seconds off now. The old dudes in cars drive, he'll watch this with eager eyes as well, think can he get into the fight if they do start to rip time out of one another and battle. But as they go on through what will be Mulsanne chicane 1 and on towards the second stretch, what is going to be between them a similar battle that we do see here between Deanster and Pearson. In the battle for the AM win, the two BMW drivers here nose to tail as they make the way on through the first chicane. And keep in mind, Deanster does have some front right damage to the car compared to what is a relatively clear car, albeit it will have picked up some gradual damage from bumps in the road and the curbs of Pearson. But still, the SAS racing driver here keeping close to the TE Sport Tyre driver. Both of them looking to notch their first wins on the board for this season and their GT3 League career at UKSimRacing. But only one of them can take it here today. It's a battle of the BMWs, but who will be the one that's at the high step on that podium? Well, as they make the way through the second chicane here, Pearson absolutely trying to extract every little bit of speed out of the chicane. Deanster, meanwhile, being a bit more conservative in his approach, and I think with that, that might be something that's quite telling right now. Deanster preparing for the long battle that's going to take them to the very end of this, and we'll give you an idea of our race leader right now making his way onwards towards where the Corvette curves. Well, we definitely will get another 2 laps in after this current lap, so we'll have 23 laps of racing here by my recognition, and that may, well, for some drivers it may scare some others, and the fact they may have to do some extra fuel saving in order to get to that final checker flag. But meanwhile, as we ride on board here with Pearson, well, it's a long run, and again, Pearson might be doing this right now. He may be thinking about the fact there will be a 23rd lap, and therefore deciding just to back off slightly for the next lap or so, and then do all the batting on the final lap. We can't see what's going through the driver's head. We don't have a direct feed to the pit wall in terms of any team managers or principals, unfortunately, so therefore we can't give you that information. Not that they want to tell us what that information is, because obviously other teams managers would be wanting to know that information as well. But as we look to these two coming on through at turn at number 19 and up towards our larger 20 they go. Will Pearson right now definitely all in the wheel tracks here. Deanster, I think now started up the tempo. Deanster have a little bit of power oversteer on the corner exit. I think tyres are definitely showing their age on both cars here, and now it's down to the two drivers and their natural abilities. We look from them back to what is a bit further down the order. Here's John Doble versus Thomas Barger, and it looks as though the Rexy Mobile is holding on to P5 in the AM class comfortably right now, and Doble's still a bit further back there for TE Sport Kimi, not quite able to close up. But as they head up towards what is turn number 21, going in towards the Porsche curve shortly. In fact, coming down towards Indianapolis first, it will be, and then the Porsche curves, getting a little bit ahead of ourselves there. Well, these two have been battling quite often, albeit it does seem as though over the last couple of laps, now they seem to have a bit of a hiatus to their battle. And if anything, Pajot, I think, has just found an edge in terms of pace versus his rival. But then again, we could see it go through swings and roundabouts before it's all said and done. And as they head on through when it's there on Orange Corner, you know, I can see many of you there in the YouTube chat talking about the fact Rhys Saunders out of the thick of the battle in today, and well, he is known for being right in the thick of those battles from round to round this season for the team at Year 1 driver from the United Kingdom right now. He is running on average a second a lap slower compared to Håkon Grebstad behind, but when you do have an 8-second gap to play with, well, that only means one thing, and that is that right now you can afford to turn the wick down slightly, make sure you got the fuel to get to the end, and also you don't need to take any risk. Grebstad, meanwhile, has to risk it all right now if he wants this win, and it could be a championship defining result here in terms of second place if he's not able to get the win and fully close down the gap to Roseth as much as he would like. And we'll have to see what the standings look like provisionally come the end of today's broadcast, but the key point being for the Indian Motorsport driver, things right now are definitely looking to be up against the wall in terms of being able to close that gap down. Meanwhile, Newman here, the Empire Motorsport driver, still P3. He does have Ryan Davies 1.1 seconds behind, but it does seem as though Lamborghini Huracan driver has found a way to stay one step ahead, heading on to the brakes here through the right hand they go, and well right now you can see there Newman almost sliding out of the corner. That Lamborghini definitely feeling that time, where the Porsche of Davies meanwhile going a bit deep into the corner. I wonder if Ryan Davies might be struggling a little bit with the front tyres on that car. Perhaps it's just not turning as much as it would like, or perhaps he's doing that in order to make sure the rear of the car doesn't want to overstep its mark, given the fact that the rear tyres of these cars, with them both being a mid-engine rear-wheel drive, with the Porsche having the engine wire with the rear axle compared to Lamborghini, will definitely be feeling that rear tyre degradation, and it will cause the car to be very slidey on corner entry and also power and exit. It's going to be a handful as they come out of Indianapolis. We do say hello there to Zyned Gaming, and well, it's the first time we've seen you there in the YouTube chat. Zyned, great to see you getting involved in the chat, as I try to make the way on around and up towards what will be at the Porsche curves to the penultimate time. All right, now in terms of those close battles, we do look to Alan Lever versus Brandon Hay, and when we said to you that Brandon Hay was going to get close before this race is over, and he's already there with a lap to go, and Lever right now will be thinking it's not this lap that matters, it's the next one, in the fact that it's all going to come down to the slipstream battling. But Lever immediately going defensive here as he puts the car into the second kink in the run down to Indianapolis, and where it's going to be a defense on the inside to outside for Lever, but Hay's going to have the outside and the overspeed with it, but both drivers they commit side by side. They go into the braking zone, and Hay will take the inside. He'll take the lead of the Pro Class back, but now can Lever stay with him for the run onto the final lap? That will be the challenge as Lever thinks about switching to the inside of Arnage, but it's too far back. But he'll now know what the run feels like there if the same thing happens on the final lap of this race. Speaking of which, white flag is out. Our race leader Reece Saunders has just gone on to the final lap. He's lost 2 seconds to Grebstad on that previous lap, but Grebstad's still 6.8 seconds behind and still has plenty of gap to close down. But as our drivers make the way on through right now, we do also look back to that battle for the AM lead between Deansa and Pearson, and where it does look as though here right now Deansa able to extract a bit more of a gap. 7 tenths is the gap. It is increasing steadily here over the course of the lap, and will the Tiki Sinspot Tower driver feel as though now it's all going to be his, albeit I would imagine that Pearson might be egging himself up for one final lap and a charge, and therefore not trying to get too close, but he can't let Deansa get too far away, as otherwise he'll spend the whole lap trying to chase him down before it's all said and done. And as they make the way on towards the remainder of the Porsche curves and into the Corvette curves very shortly. Meanwhile, we look back to your overall race leader, and here is Reece Saunders. And you can see that gap to Grebstad right now, 7.5 seconds. That gap continuing to come down. In fact, it's going up, and I wonder if Grebstad's had another slowdown coming out of Tetra Rouge, because that gap is increasing. It's not decreasing right now, but Grebstad going through the corners, I think will feel as though he can close it down as much as possible. But interesting contrast there, because that gap was coming down quite rapidly, but it has opened up by half a second. And now it's on at the decliner once again, potentially. But meanwhile, with that gap pretty much safe in Saunders' hands, we look then back to the battle for the pro lead. And Hay versus Lever here coming on through the S's. And Brandon Hay right now feeling as though everything is still going his way as we ride on board with Lever coming out of the S's into Tetra Rouge he goes. And as he does so here, well, it's a critical corner exit. You don't want to gamble on a run wide there and a slow down right to the end. All both drivers nailing it. In fact, Hay absolutely nailing the perfect line there. 2 wheels on the exit curve all the way around. And Brandon Hay continues to hold on to this lead. 8 tenths in declining. Lever did have a little bit more speed than the tank, it would seem, albeit Hay is being closed there by the toe, I think, that Lever has got to his initiative. But the thing is, this is the first part of Bolzan. They've still got another 3 long straights before they get to Indianapolis. And onto the brakes they go, and 11 now will turn all the way up to 11. He'll give it everything on the brakes as Hay there falling it back into the clutches of Lever as they power the way onto the second part of Bolzan. But with this lap still winding on down. Meanwhile, between Deansa and Pearson, it's side by side in the battle for the lead of the AM class here. And these two right now, 2 for now as they come down towards the first chicane. It's Pearson on the left, Deansa on the right. Pearson will have the inside. There's contact between the two of them. Deansa defends the inside here. Pearson made to go a long way round. Well, he'll tuck back in there, and Pearson was saving everything up for the final lap. We thought he was simply waiting for this final opportunity. Behind them, meanwhile, you can see that is, I do believe, Jones versus Kirkland in the rear of your picture as they make the way on down the Molesden straight, charging away and down they go. And as they do, well, the battle between Jones and Kirtland, no disrespect to it, but it won't take centre stage compared to the Amley battle here. I'm sure you understand, ladies and gentlemen. As meanwhile, Pearson takes another probe, looks up the inside into the second chicane, but Deansa outbrakes in this time. So therefore, it's only going to be 2 more opportunities before we start to see those overtaking opportunities fade away. But right now, Pearson is still looking for a way, and Deansa, however, proved to be obstinate. He's not an obstacle that you can clearly clear. and as they make the way up towards turn number 15 in towards Mulsanne. Meanwhile, between Hay and Lever, it's the battle for the pro lead we switch back to here as they make their way onwards towards Indianapolis, and while Hay is only a 10th ahead, Lever looks to the inside. He tries to find the door, it's not open. Hay's closed it firmly shut. They come through the second kick. Lever will look round the outside here. He's going to try and do what Hay did to him only a lap ago. The Lamborghini's got the rotation for it. There's a bit of a rub between them. Lever goes around the outside. Can he get it stopped in time? He can't quite get alongside. Meanwhile, Hay defends it there, and as they come on out of the corner, they now head down towards what is Arnage. But meanwhile, we look to our race leader, ladies and gentlemen, as he crosses the line, and it's a checker flag for Reece Saunders, who takes the win here and will his second win of the season in Elite Class of Team Year 1 in a fantastic strategic drive ahead of Håkon Grebstad, P2 for Ignium Motorsport. It will then be Joe Newman at P3 as he crosses the line for Empire Motorsport ahead of Ryan Davies P4, Elite and overall these places, Ryan Walker P5, and then it will be in due order Martin Tilley who comes on through. But meanwhile, I am keeping my eyes for you on the timings of those battles further down, but Tilley will take P6 as we start to see our finishers come on through, and we will come back to Moles in a second. But meanwhile, here is your pro lead battle between Hay and Wiz Lever, and you can see through the Porsche cars it has settled down now. But meanwhile, Ryan Moles comes on through to take P7 Elite and overall. That's the Elite Class finishers, ladies and gentlemen, and then making his way through the last couple of quarters. Lever takes another peek there. He's not close enough, and I think Alan Lever right now is willing the Lamborghini on as Brandon Hay literally takes all the speed and fun out the chicanes. But as he comes out the corner, Brandon Hay has done it. He takes the win for Newbridge Esports by in the end what is a second over Alan Lever, who runs out of fuel at the checker flag. It will then be Casper Ron who completes the pro podium P3 behind ahead of Aaron McGregor. And then in the battle for the win in the AM class was they make their way through the Ford chicanes. It's BMW battle plenty here as Satinder Deedson comes out the final corner. He runs it to the line, and the Tiki Suzuki Tower driver takes his first win of his GT3 League career ahead of Stuart Pearson, who takes his first podium. Richard Jones finishes their P5 Pro ahead of Marvin Cruz, who rounds off the AM podium to take his best performance ever for bike racing. And it'll be Casper Tunstead at P16 overall, P6 Pro ahead of Matt Strand and Chris Kirkland, followed up by James Connolly, who comes to the line there to finish P4 in the AM class. And as they cross the line, it will then be, I believe, P20 going to Thomas Barjuk as he gets ready to complete his lap. And well, the Rexy machine here, it's a long way back compared to the other cars, but still, for the privateer, this is a big result for him, a P5 in the AM class. And well, the number 14 there, it takes the delight of what will be many a child and also an adult with a little bit of childish side in seeing a dinosaur in the car. But you can't help but smile, ladies and gentlemen, as he comes on through to take P5 in class and round off our top 20 overall. And then it will be Matt Edmondson who holds on in the end for P6 for UKSimRacing Clark in the AM class, with I think John Doble running out of fuel in the final corner, but the TD6 Kimmy driver will just limp to the line. It won't be race changing in the end. He'll be P7 AM, and then your last finisher, albeit he's a little bit of a way back, ladies and gentlemen, but I know you want to give him a round of applause because anybody who finishes a race like this at Le Mans deserves it just for getting to the checkered flag. It will be Paul Joseph Cliff shortly for Olympus Esports, who carries on, and that's the spirit we love to see from the 92 driver as he heads up towards the Ford chicanes, where he's battling for a top 5 early on in today, but it didn't quite work out on strategy, and also a mistake a little bit earlier on in the race cost him dear. But he will be your final finisher in what will be P23 overall, P18 class, as he comes on through to finish the Anfield and with it the overall field here today. But what a race, ladies and gentlemen, from start to finish. In the fact that close battles are plenty, but as our drivers, most of them have already made their way into the pit lane. We do look to Brandon Hay making his way on a cool down lap down the Mulsanne straight, and right now I don't think he's going to believe it right now that he's finally taken his win in the Pro Class for this season. And well, it has come at a huge change today from one Lamborghini Huracan Evo, and you can see that Alan Lever sitting in front of him. I think Alan just wanted a taste of being in front of Brandon Hay one more time on this circuit, but knowing it just wasn't quite there today. The BMW just having the legs on the Lamborghini, but a fantastic battle between the two of them, and well, nothing can be taken away from either of them, with both of them picking up their best results of the season so far as they make their way side by side around. It's great to see the racing respect between them. There was a little bit of door rubbing. You could wonder whether that little bit of contact going into Indianapolis potentially just made Lever back out slightly. A fully forcing the move around the outside. Because he's still committed to it, but I wonder if he just felt as though with that contact, he wanted to settle the car down a little bit more. But again, when they are running at this level, ladies and gentlemen, and at the pace they're running, that contact is racing. It's not an incident, and as far as we're concerned, it's great to see them going in full force, and nothing can be taken away from the two of them. But with that, it is time for us to take a look at those race results, subject to any stewards' inquiries, of which there may be a couple from today. And well, let's take a look at those results, and here they are. We start with the overall category, and as we can see, as those results are here, we can see that Rhys Saunders taking the win in round 7 of the UKSimRacing GT3 League Season 11 in the elite and overall categories by 6.1 seconds in the end for Team Year 1 over Ignium Motorsport's Håkon Grebstad. And again, a huge mention to Rhys Saunders for a strategic gamble which worked out in him by simply undercutting midway through and giving himself all the track space to work with compared to his rivals. P3 meanwhile went to Joe Newham, the Empire Motorsport driver there, completing the podium, and a phenomenal pole lap from the Empire Motorsport Lamborghini Huracan Evo, but it wasn't to be in terms of race pace, but still he'll be pleased to be on the podium ahead of Ryan Davis of TG Simsport Kimi, who couldn't quite hold on to Joe Newman come the end. But then Ryan Walker, P5 there for Satellite Racing, and really in the background for most of the race, but still taking the top 5 and one of his favourite circuits, and with it another great result in his championship campaign. Martin Tillin P6 for TG Simsport Kimi, the McLaren MP4 12C, showing great pace in the first half of the race, but starting and to fall off a proverbial cliff in the second half of the race and causing Tillin a bit more of a headache in terms of pace. And then at ProTech Motorsports, Ryan Moles round off your elite drives there, P7 overall, and the best part of what was 20 seconds clear of that Brandon Hay. Your pro winner P8 for Newbridge Esports, holding on by 3 seconds in the end over a fuel-starred Aaron Lever as he came across the line for UKSimRacing Price, and a further 4 seconds back to round off the pro podium. And with it, your overall top 10, Casper Rotner for Old Dudes in Cars. We then focus on Best of Rest into the AM podium finishers, and we see Best of Rest P11 Aaron McGregor there for ProTech Motorsport, not too far behind, finishing in the top 3 of the pro class. And then our AM winner P12 Satinder Deensa picking up his first GT3 League UKSimRacing career win there for TG Simsport Tyre in a brilliant drive to victory ahead of Stuart Pearson for Slow and Steady Racing, and they were 4 seconds ahead of Richard Jones, who breaks up the AM podium, the other Slow and Steady Racing driver there just behind his teammate, before Marvin Cruz for Bike Racing, your third finisher on the AM podium, and with that P15 overall. We then come on to the retirees from the race, and the drivers who finished a lap down, or at least more than 1 lap down. And as we can see there, our last lead lap finisher, P23, was Paul Joseph Cliss for Olympus Esports. And then we had finishing at 4 laps down, as classified, Darren Sharples, Kerry Kokorin, and Steinar Sunny. All drivers retiring from the race, and the same for Jack Wyborn there, albeit they will be classified as finishers as they did complete over half the race distance. And then coming on to drivers who will be classified as non-finishers, as they did not complete over half the race distance, from Daniel Pays in P28, also Alexander Truno McAlson, Chris Constable, Aaron Herbert, and BJ Alvarez, and that completes your finishing order for the race overall. And then coming on to the elite class, we can see here Rhys Saunders, the team at Year 1, taking the win in the end by 6.2 seconds over Håkon Grebstad, the Ignium Motorsport driver there, going for a more conventional strategy, and well, in doing so, it didn't quite work out in the end, and Saunders finding a way to break the deadlock between the two of them and making it his second win of the season. For Grebstad, it was a missed opportunity for a win. It's a second place, which will enable him to narrow the gap to Erik Røseth, but with those 2 points missing, it does mean now that Røseth just has a slight greater advantage going into the final 2 rounds of the season, but Grebstad will have to work overtime if he wants to bring it on down, particularly with the final round of the season not being a drop score round at Bathurst. P3, meanwhile, Joe Newman for Empire Motorsport, a further 7 seconds back, and the Empire Motorsport driver there definitely today shine as his pace, but not quite able to stick with it all the way to conclusion, but still credit to him where it's due. A phenomenal drive from Joe Newman, ahead of Ryan Davis of TG Simsport Kimi and Ryan Walker for Satellite Racing to complete your top 5, and outside the top 5 in the elite class, finishing the order, Martin Tillin and Ryan Moles. We then come on to the pro class. And as we can see here in the pro class, Brandon Hay taking the win in the end by 2.7 seconds at the line. But keep in mind, it was much closer all the way to the end with Aaron Lever. But the Newbridge Esports driver in the end finding a way on through versus the UKSimRacing Price driver, but nothing between them for 99.9% of the race. Casper Rotner P3 for Old Dudes in Cars. In the end, a valiant P3, and really showing that the Porsche 992 wasn't the car on the pace today, but he still brought it on with a very consistent drive and was in the lead battle to the final stint with Aaron McGregor P4 there for ProTech Motorsport. Motorsport and having to come a long way through the field in order to do so after falling back early on. P5 in the Pro class went to Richard Jones of Slow and Steady Racing, another great performance, and a top 5 there for the number 99 driver, ahead of Pete Sim Racing's Casper Tunstead, and then Matt Strand, Chris Kirtland, Darren Sharples and Kerry Kokoran completing your top 10, and a bit of an odd strategy for Chris Kirtland in the end, which turned out to be a lack of fuel going into the car by 10 minutes worth of fuel, and Kirtland, who could have been on course to do what Reece Saunders did in the Elite class, and then had to take one extra pit stop and rounded out his campaign here in P8 today. But then we see the top 10 finish off by Kokoran, the other Downforce Racing driver, and then our retirees and non-finishers of Daniel Pays, Alexander Tremino McAlson, Chris Constable and Aaron Herbert. We then come to the AM class, last but not least. And as we can see, Satinder Dean's taking that win in the end by 4 attempts for Tiki Sinsport over Slow and Steady Racing Stuart Pearson, and both drivers notching their best performances thus far. Marvin Cruz at P3 there for Bike Racing, matching a previous best performance from Season 10, if my memory serves me correctly, and finding his way back onto the podium. We always love to see the number 90 driver up there, with 13 seconds to James Connolly for UKSimRacing Moss, who battled his way all the way through from the back of the starting grid with no qualifying lap set, and Thomas Barjack completing the top 5 there in the Rexy Mobile Privateer, number 14. A further, what was in the end at 17 seconds behind, was Matt Edmondson for UKSimRacing Clark, ahead of John Doble for Tiki Sinsport Kimmy. Now a further 40 seconds behind, Paul Joseph Cliss completing our finishes on the lead lap for Olympus Esports. 4 laps down, both Steinar Sunny and Jack Wyborn, and then we saw the sole retiree and non-finisher of the race, BJ Alvarez, P11 there for Team SimRacing Chicago. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes all of our finishing positions and indeed our racing here for today. But it doesn't quite conclude our broadcast for today, of course, because coming up very shortly, we do have our post-round interviews with our volunteer drivers. And we'd just like to remind you once again, if you have enjoyed the racing from today, we are currently in the planning process at UKSimRacing when it comes to our upcoming league. So that does include what is Season 12 of the GT3 League, and also what is Season 8 of the Porsche Cup, with Season 7 and Season 11 of them respectively ongoing. And we have got other leagues planned, including a potential GT1 HPD multi-class league, also a GTP GT3 multi-class league. So we'd love to hear your thoughts with regards to those potential prospects and other leagues we may have planned, or if you've seen anything today that you think we could improve upon going into next season, do let us know, and you can do so by leaving feedback in the Google form that we've just posted the link to in the YouTube description. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, while we give you an opportunity to leave some of your feedback, I'm going to step away for about 10 to 15 minutes to help our drivers get ready for their post-round interviews, and we'll be back then. You won't want to miss them. We'll see you shortly. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is now time for us to get underway with our post-round interviews. And today, we're going to be hearing from our winners in each of the classes. Start off with Rhys Saunders in the Team Year 164 in the Elite class. Then we're going on to our AM winner, Satinder Dinsa, in the TT SimSport Tyre number 10. And then coming from our AM winner, we'll have a brief interlude where we do talk to our runner-up in the AM class of Slow and Steady Racing, Stuart Pearson, in the number 88. Well, then coming back to our Pro winner for Newbridge Esports, Brandon Hay, in the number 96 BMW. But without further ado, we start off with Rhys Saunders. He joins me in at the interview room. And, well, good evening to you, Rhys. And what a race today. Having started from the very back end of the Elite class, P9 on the overall grid, and carving your way through to the win on strategy and taking the win by over 6 seconds in the end. An absolute masterclass race and arguably one of the highlights of the season on strategy. You must be absolutely proud of your performance.
Buzzing, Paul. To be fair, it feels like a bit of vindication. I've had such an up and down season. It feels like I've used all of my race IQ in one go.
Oh, goodness me. Well, you've definitely been vindicated because the last time we saw you on the top step of the podium was in Spain at Motorland Aragon back in round number 3. But focusing on here today, qualifying firstly, looked as though in qualifying things did not work out. 2 seconds down on the pole lap set by Joe Newman. What happened in qualifying?
Strategy a little bit wrong. I've done lots of laps at Le Mans over the years, so I didn't actually practice this week at all. I just thought it'd be all right on the night. Didn't put enough fuel in the car to do 2 laps in quali, and the first lap was a bit pants. So it was just one that, I was a little bit out of position, but I knew with an hour and a half race, qualifying, as long as the front 2 didn't get away, wasn't going to matter too much.
With that in qualifying in mind, and really now the focus turning more and more into the race, with not quite working out. We saw in the early stage of the race, as we take a look back at some of the pictures currently, you very quickly started to carve your way up through the field. And this was always going to be a long race, and in the BMW M4, you're always going to have a natural straight line speed advantage based on the balance of performance. How were you thinking about your approach to gradually rising to the front? Was there a particular sort of philosophy you took in terms of when you passed somebody versus when you just sat behind and fuel safe? Just take us through that mindset.
I'm on my final warning for driving standards with the league. At the minute, I'm on probation pretty much until the end of this week because of earlier indiscretions. So my only mindset was just don't hit anyone, which it turns out I should probably have thought about doing that earlier in the season. But yeah, just using the straight line speed advantage, taking no risks. It's a brilliant setup I've got for around here. It's from Apex Academy. And yeah, it's very, very slippery versus the non-BMWs. It was quicker, and I think Håkon was running a slightly different setup to me, and he had a bit more wing on it. So, yeah, using the straight line speed just to make the moves a bit easier.
Well, it definitely showed as the race went on, and well, once you got in amongst all your elite peers and quite early on the opening couple of laps, you started to ascend. And I have to ask, when we saw Newman and Grebstad batting at the front of the field and you were leading the battle for P3, it looked as though you were very eager to try and catch up to the front too. Was that where you thought the strategy would sit, by being at the front of the field all the way through?
Yeah, it's that one, isn't it? It's just getting away from the cars in front and just, hopefully trying to get a bit of a gap. I was hoping that they'd carry on fighting and I'd break the draft, but through a small mistake of mine in the first pit stop, I took 4 tyres, which was about 2 seconds slower than if I'd have just done fuel and 2, and that let Grebstad get back onto my tail, and that really drove what happened next.
Now, on that, in terms of after the first round of pit stops, and with that slight blunder, we saw the two of you battling and a back and forth with the BMWs just breaking away from the rest of the field quite naturally. But then you opted on the second round of pit stops to mix things up, and an undercut which worked out in the end and gave you plenty of track room.
Yeah, it was a massive, massive gamble. I had a feeling with his extra wing, he was much quicker than me through the Porsche curve, so even if I could break away, through the first part of the lap, he was always going to catch me up in the twisties, and I felt like I was kind of dragging him along with me, and we were gapping the rest of the field. My idea was, by short pitting, was that I'd break that toe from him, have a slightly shorter pit stop, and just get myself into the lead and hopefully break away that way. Unfortunately, I broke away a little bit too early in terms of that stop, and yeah, had to do some major fuel saving at the end. I was about 3 litres short going into the final stint. So massive amounts of lifting and coasting, but I'd done enough work on the lower fuel tank in the mid part of the race to get enough of a gap over Håkon that I could do enough fuel saving without having to worry too much.
Well, indeed, it definitely seemed to work out in your favour with regards to the fuel saving that you were doing at the end and that trade-off of the gap you built up from that shorter mid-stint. Although, obviously, one of these things, when you're doing a strategy that's different to everybody else, is that concept of self-doubt that gradually creeps in as the race goes on. I have to ask you, did you have any moments where you sort of thought to yourself, I've thrown this all away now, I've picked the wrong strategy?
I did. So I'd got my team boss sat in my ear, Graham Sesford, and he said, "What are you doing?" when I boxed. And I went, "Watch this, this will be 200 IQ. I was so confident. Pitted, came out. Once the stops played through, I'd got that big lead into the third stint. And I thought, yeah, I've got this in the bag. And then I realised that I needed to put a full tank of fuel in for the final stop. And I was still going to have some fuel in the car from previously. And I thought, I'm half a lap short here. And then, yeah, there was a lot of doubt. He did say, only you try and do something that was 200 IQ and then knock the zeros off it. But yeah, it was just one of those ones where, yeah, and then once I pitted down, he was like, "You've got 10 seconds, you reckon you can save 3 litres?" He was talking in my ear, telling me where to lift. I require quite a lot of driver coaching sometimes because of my lack of fight IQ, I suppose. So yeah, I had it in the background, so big thank you to Graham. The win's probably more his than mine.
To be fair, he may have been giving you the advice. It's all good to have the team strategist on the board with you, but you've still got to do the driving. And as the laps gradually wound on down, whilst the gap was coming down, in the end it wouldn't creep any lower than 6 seconds. And then coming out the final corner, you said earlier about the fact it feels like vindication. How did it feel seeing that checker flag and knowing you just had enough fuel to get to the line?
Greatest feeling in the world. Super happy with it. Kind of brings me back into the championship fight at Touch. I still think Roseth's got one hand on the championship. He's not going to make it to Phillip Island either. So it's another opportunity for me and Håkon to grab some decent points and at least make it interesting going into that final race at Bathurst.
Oh, 100%. And I was about to ask, with the fact we've got 2 rounds remaining and on the back of a victory today, Phillip Island awaits us with the commencement of our tour down under in Australia. How are you feeling for that circuit?
Not great. I'm glad Erik isn't racing it, to be honest with you, because I think the Porsche is going to be mighty fast around there. It won't be a good track for the BMW at all. I think Bathurst might be a 50-50 track. There's going to be areas of the track that will favour the Porsche, but then I think over the mountain, and the BMW with its high-speed stability is going to come in strong. So it'll be a really interesting end to the championship. Hopefully we can put on a great show for all the viewers, and yeah, hopefully no more trips to the steward's office as well.
Well, fingers crossed in both regards. We do look forward to seeing you out of the circuit in a week's time in Australia. But just before we do let you go, Rees, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
Yeah, as always, just a big shout out to Team Year One. Thank you for all the support they give me, and our sponsors Fuel Can and also Speed of Sight, who are a charity that do some amazing work. One of our members, Drew Hanslow, putting sight disadvantaged people in race cars for experience days from down the UK.
Rees, with that, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you join me in the interview room. Congratulations once again on a superb and, to use your quote, 200 IQ drive to victory today. We love to see it, and we'd love to see it on the top step and fighting fit for. But once again, enjoy it, savour the moment, and we look forward to seeing you in Australia for round number 8.
Cheers, thank you very much.
Have a great evening. So hearing there from Rees Saunders, our elite class winner today from Team Year One, and well, immediately saying it feels like vindication. And indeed, Rees has definitely been at the sharp end when it's come to a number of race incidents over the course of this season. I mentioned there that he's been on probation. And really, this is the last warning when it comes to contact with drivers. And we have seen a few incidents, and well, you can cast your mind back to last week where there were a couple. But still, you know what? He's kept his head down. He looked to keep it clean today, and instead focused on an alternative approach and went for the gamble on the strategy. And in doing so, in keeping his cool, carrying on and being calm all the way through, it paid off in the end for the Team at Year One driver. And well, right now, I don't think he's earned anything other than the complete respect of the paddock for the simple reason he showed today what he's all about, and definitely a fantastic fantastic drive. And his thoughts on the wider championship in terms of fitness, so Røseth does have one hand on the title, and as we'll update you a little bit later, the provisional points do definitely suggest that's the case, but still 2 rounds to go, and you never know what can happen until it's all over. And I think Grease will be definitely looking for a P2 at the minimum, if not trying to have that outside shot of the championship win. But we'll have to see whether it comes about. Now going on to our second interview for this evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be hearing from Satinder Deensar, our AM class winner. And as he gets ready to join me in the interview room, well, it's going to be a great story to hear from him. In fact, earlier on this season, he had his first podium, but now we come on to talking to him about his first win in class. And as he does get ready to join me in here, in fact, he does join me now, we welcome into the interview room Satinder Deensar. Satinder, a phenomenal performance from yourself tonight, and well, absolutely nailing it in qualifying to put it on pole, and then in the race, fighting on through to take class victory. You must be absolutely pleased to go one step further and take your first win of your GT3 League career.
Yeah, that was intense. I didn't think I was going to put it on pole. When I was looking at the practice times, I figured, oh, maybe people haven't set good laps because it's a really long lap. And then when quali came around, I was like, all right, I'll see what I can do. And it wasn't my fastest lap. I definitely could have gone a little bit faster, but when I saw the end result, I was like, wow, I'm almost a second and a half faster. And that kind of played a little bit into my mindset when things didn't go so well in the very first lap. I thought maybe I can catch up and use some of that pace.
Well, indeed, and staying with that qualifying lap in particular for a moment, this circuit, and a very tricky circuit, given the fact it's a combination of road surfaces plus also natural daily use roads versus some dedicated tarmac. Are there any parts of the lap that you'd really focused on in your practice in terms of these are the sections I've got to get right versus, say, the sections where it's just plain easy like any other circuit?
The biggest thing that I was losing time on when I was practicing was Indianapolis, that high-speed right-hander corner where you have to brake. And I was watching a video maybe 20 minutes before practice started, just trying to watch some of the lines and see what's being done, and was able to use that in practice to gain a lot of time that I was missing out before.
Well, indeed, practice makes perfect, and also a little bit of analysis never goes astray. And well, that definitely helped out with regards to an absolute phenomenal pole lap. And then going into the race, it all went wrong in the opening couple of laps. But then very quickly starting to make your way through the field, as we're looking at some of the replay pictures now of you chasing down at John Doble. Just take us through from your perspective that sort of roller coaster ride that was the first 2 laps.
It was not fun. I knew I had a lot of pace. I was doing very well. And then to the first chicane off of the straight, I was like, hey, I got a pro. I'm going to let him pass. And then I ran a little bit more wide than I was expecting. And I got just a little bit of a tap, and that made me go off track. And it gave me a slowdown. So I lost at least, I think, 8 or 10 positions. I'll have to watch it back. And in my head, I was like, oh, this is not a great start. And that kind of flustered me a little bit. For the first couple laps, I kept getting slowdowns, and I was trying to push too hard. And my team was on the radio, like, hey, you know what? You have the pace. Just take it easy. It's a very long race. You'll get him in the end.
Well, indeed, given the 90-minute race here, right philosophy to take in terms of a long way to go. And as the time started to wind down and we saw those first pit stops coming back, you've already started to halve the deficit to the front of the field. The natural pace you brought to the table is shining on through. But I also have to ask, given the fact you were chasing places back, did that start to make you think about how you needed to perhaps change your approach to any fuel saving, given you'd be needing more fuel in order to make those overtakes?
So it was actually the opposite. With the BMW, it was, if you put a full tank in, it was like 0.8 of a lap that you were not able to use. So I was trying to calculate it to put a little bit less fuel in to try and save some time in the pits. I definitely could have overall, I think over the course of the race, saved maybe 5 seconds more by under fueling, just because of that, extra fuel that it automatically wanted to put in for you.
I see. That definitely does make sense when it comes to the strategy element. And we saw you take the standard strategy today, of which was longer stints in the opening portion of the race all the way through to that final pit stop. Looks like it's a bit of a textbook strategy. Did you at any point think about gambling, given your close battling with Stuart Pearson?
No, I think my overall strategy was just try and jump him in the pit lane right behind him. I hadn't practiced any other strategy. I know everybody was talking about Reese, how he made that crazy undercut work on the opposite strategy, but it was not something I was looking for, just to try and play it safe.
I see, and well, playing it safe in the end led to a fantastic showdown between yourself and the slow and steady racing driver, the battle of the BMWs. And well, it looked as though at first it was going to be very close all the way to the end, but it looked as though with a little bit of assistance from a battling pair of pro drivers as well, you moved into lead and you never looked back.
Yeah, that's definitely something I'm gonna have to rewatch. I'm not sure exactly what happened there. I felt like they braked a little bit too early, and I was like, all right, well, the gap is opening the inside, I might have to take it, see what happens from there. And then that caused me and Stuart to kind of line up next to each other, which kind of led us into a little bit farther down the lap.
Well, it was a bit of a difficult one there, and I definitely think as well that, like you say, you'll need to take a look back at that because it was very close, but still thinking more in terms of that battle right at the end. We did see Pearson try to come back at you, and indeed some side-by-side battling between the two of you going on through was the moles and chicanes, but at no point did you want to yield, and a bit of door rubbing, but rubbing is racing, as they say.
Yeah, you know, it's one of those where it's like you try and give yourself just enough room, and we knew we were being respectful to each other, especially considering how close we were the entire time. So it was just a matter of car positioning. Towards the run, I was kind of holding the center line, where that is the fastest because of the curve of the road, and then he was holding on the right side, so I immediately ducked to the left, right before the braking zone to try and carry that extra speed, and that's what kind of allowed me to carry that. And he went just a tad bit wide, and that's what caused him to lose some of that momentum for the second part of the straight.
And that momentum proving critical as the lap wound down. Indeed, never able to quite get alongside you once again in the concluding half of the runs up towards Indianapolis. And with corners to go, the Porsche curves, of course, perhaps being the most dangerous section of the circuit in terms of getting things right and getting things rolled. But you made it through those, and then the checker flag awaits you. And I can only imagine it must have been an absolutely joyful reaction when you saw that final checker flag.
Yeah, I think it was a mix of excitement as well as relief. Obviously, super excited to win my first race, but also at the same time, it's just like, for some parts, I felt like I was just holding on for dear life just to try and keep him behind me. And when the checkered flag fell, I was like, okay, it's finally over.
Well, with such a fantastic result today, I can tell you provisionally now, with regards to the AM Championship, it does move you into P4, and you're well within arm's reach now of battling for the championship crown. In fact, only 14 points between yourself and championship leader Simon Andre Livingston, who was not in attendance today. Championship hunt is still on. We've got 2 rounds to go, and the trip down under begins with Phillip Island next week. How are you feeling for it?
Well, considering the fact that I just looked at a track map for the very first time about 5 minutes ago, and it's a lot of, it seems like lower medium speed corners, that's not something I do very well at. So it's going to be a lot of practice for me to try and get it nailed.
Well, we are keen and look forward to seeing how that practice goes and how you get on in a week's time. But just before we do let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast tonight?
Yeah, definitely. Once again, the guys at Tiki, they basically helped me, coach me. They was like, hey, you know what, take it easy. This is what you got to do here. This is what's going on over there. So a lot of information to keep my head in the right place for finishing very well in obviously a good position. And of course, I know my family's watching, so definitely shout out to them. Thanks for all the support.
Well, Satinder, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you join me in at the interview room. Congratulations once again on notching your first win in your UKSimRacing GT3 League career. I'm sure plenty more to follow now that you've broken the duck of the first one. And well, could it come at Phillip Island in a week's time? We'll have to wait and see. But until then, enjoy the moment and have a fantastic rest of your evening.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Paul.
So hearing there from Satinder Deansir, the AM driver today for Tiki Sim Sport Tyre, who absolutely delivered in qualifying, but in the open lap of the race, it all went backwards. But still, didn't give up, kept his head down, and knew that it's a 90-minute race and anything can happen, and you've got to be in it to win it all the way from lights out to checker flag, and he embodied that spirit from at the start, in the fact making a rapid recovery and battling into the top 5 before the end of the first stint, and on the strategy, staying with the conventional strategy and putting himself in a position to battle for the win with fellow BMW M4 driver from Slow and Steady Racing Stuart Pearson. And well, between them in the end, there was very little left. Side by side on the final lap, going on through at the first of the moles and chicanes, but positioned himself well to defend, and in the end Pearson would stay behind, and that would be how they would finish at the checker flag. And Deans's story this season has been one one to absolutely enjoy. It has been a story of seeing the driver firstly pick up his first podium and now pick up his first class win. And well, he is an outsider at the moment with regards to potentially taking the AM class winner this season. But given the fact that we do right now have 5 drivers in the AM Championship separated by only what is 16 points from P1 to P5, it's anybody's guess. And could Deanster make a late charge for the win? We'll have to wait and see, and we'll see that at Phillip Island next week if he's able to put another win together. But now we come on to our final, well, not our final interview, I must say, our final AM interview. That's better there. And we'll be hearing from what is Stuart Pearson as he gets ready to join me in the interview room. And, well, we'll get to hear his story on that battle for what was P1 in the AM class. And it didn't quite work out in the end, but also bringing on home his best performance of the season thus far. Well, as he does now join me in the interview room, we do say hello to Stuart. Good evening to you, Stuart. And, well, it wasn't quite the result you wanted at the end, but still a P2 that's been hard earned, your best result of the season, and you must still be proud looking back and thinking you almost managed to clutch the win in the final lap.
Well, yeah, slightly disappointed the win didn't come, but beginning of the race I'd have taken the top 3. So overall, yeah, no point racing too hard with him. It was catching me all race overall, so yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy.
Well, you embodied your team's name of slow and steady racing in the entirety of the race today. We didn't see you set the fastest laps necessarily, but in qualifying, P3 in class, P20 on the grid. Looked as though it was a strong qualifying session from yourself.
Yeah, I've done a few races this week, so I knew I was quite fast actually, to be honest. Well, comparing, but it turned out well. From the moment I set off, I knew people were dropping backwards, so I was in the lead for quite some time. Yeah, I'm happy.
Indeed, and just on that in the race, in terms of we saw the BMW M4 being one of the stronger cars around the circuit, arguably the strongest here today, and in taking the lead early on, as we look at the pictures currently of you battling it with Marvin Cruz for what was the lead at that time, did you factor the relative strength of the BMW M4 into your strategy potentially in terms of the fact you had a lot of straight line speed so you could perhaps back off and save a bit more fuel compared to your peers?
No fuel saving at all. I'd already worked out it was 6 laps, so yeah, at a push you could have gone to 7, but the time lost for 7 laps, I can't fuel save. You just got to press the accelerator and see how fast you go. That's where I drive.
Well, that's absolutely fair, and going all in the end, and indeed you went all in to make the move for the lead of the class early on, and holding on to lead for some time, but then, like you say, we did see Deanster gradually bring his way back through to the front of the field, and his threatening presence started to loom in the last couple of laps.
Yeah, it was my last pit stop. We came out behind some pros. They just... Unfortunately, they weren't up to our pace at that time. Whatever they'd done with their tyres, I don't know. But it was, yeah, we caught them very quickly. He then caught me quickly. And then I had a slowdown. And after the slowdown, I just was never going to get past him, to be fair.
Indeed, and with the slowdown, it did prove to be a little bit of a penalisation for yourself, albeit you could argue a bit unfairly, but still you have to take what you're given when the racing gets this close. And well, Deanster got ahead, but then a bit of a return from yourself on the final lap, some fantastic side-by-side racing.
Yeah, I had a look, but at the end of the day, it was finishing second was more important than us both crashing out at that point in time. So yeah, we definitely give each other plenty of room at that moment in time.
Need plenty of space given, but I have to ask, was there a thought to try and make a return move in the latter stage of the lap? Because we did see you every so often taking a little bit of a peek into, say, Molesey Corner or even Indianapolis.
There's no room. At certain times, you need to get them on the straight. You've got to get the drag. You've got to come out of the bend, get the toe. It's the only time you're going to overtake on this track and force them to enter the next bend incorrectly. That's the way of Le Mans, isn't it? Yeah.
That's absolutely fair. And to be fair, with your result today, and we've seen you gradually move your results higher and higher in the standings over the course of the season. You moved yourself into P5 in the AM Class Championship, 16 seconds off a championship leader, Simon Andre Livingston. There's still 2 rounds to go. You've got an outside chance of taking the championship crown. How are you feeling at this point with the championship crown still technically within arm's reach?
Not thought about that at all, to be honest. It's just a case of keep going. I know I've come 3rd and then 2nd, so it'd be nice to get a win next time, but I doubt it. Just keep plodding along, slow and steady, and see where we end up.
And we'll speak it of next time. We head to Phillip Island, the first circuit in our Australian doubleheader. How are you feeling for the less common circuit on the international stage?
I need to remember it. I know I've driven it, but I need to get my head wrapped around where it's at. I don't know. Is it a BMW track? That's the only reason I've done well here as well. So.
Well, we do look forward to seeing whether you've been able to get your head wrapped around the circuit come next weekend. But just before we do let you go, Stuart, is there anybody you'd love to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast tonight?
Well, anybody that's actually watching me, to be honest, it's always good. I know there's Rob over there in Australia watching and listening, which is always nice to hear people watching. Obviously family and all that. And then obviously shout out to the broadcast. You're doing a stellar job as always.
Well, Stuart, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you join me in the interview room. Congratulations once again on your second place finish, and with it your best performance of the season thus far results-wise. We look forward to plenty more from yourself before the season concludes, but until then, savour the moment and have a fantastic rest of your evening.
Cheers, thanks a lot, Paul.
So in here and there from our runner-up today in the AM class of Stuart Pearson from Slow and Steady Racing. And well, like he mentioned with regards to qualifying, expected to do quite well here given the fact the strengths of the BMW, but also the practice going on in, and the same in the race. Early on the race, making the progress, and as we did see in the pictures only moments ago, making the move for the lead on what was Marvin Cruz in a beautiful pass on the inside into the Porsche curves, but still being sensible about it and setting his sights at a reasonable point and expecting to really be fighting for P2 given Deanster's qualifying lap, which was in a class of its own. But then with Deanster falling towards the back of the field in the open lap, Stuart found himself in an opportune position to be leading, but wary of the fact that eventually his rival would come on through and be battling with him to the very end. But even there, talking about the fact, focusing on bringing home the P2 and not wanting to take the two of them off circuit and scupper both their results, and therefore very cognizant of the fact huge points were to play for here today, and well, the win's not always the thing you need to go for to get those big points on the board, and definitely some smart driving from the slow and steady racing driver. He may be an outside contender for the championship crown, but again, you never know what can happen, and even if he was just to finish inside the top 5 this season, I think he and the team would be absolutely pleased with the job he's done, given he's very new to the UKSimRacing GT3 League, and well, on his debut this season, he's shown that he's definitely capable of being right up there in terms of the results. But now coming on to our final interview of today. We'll very shortly be hearing from what will be Brandon Hay, our winner in the Pro class, and as he gets ready to join me in the interview room, well, it's going to be great to hear his thoughts on what has been a result to be remembered after that close-knit battle all the way through to conclusion. But as he gets ready to join me in the interview room, I think he is almost ready now. We're going to hear his thoughts on not just the strategy, but also that battle with Alan Lever. And in fact, as he does now join me in the interview room, we say good evening to you, Brandon. And well, your first win of the season, and what a way to do it in a back and forth battle with Alan Lever all the way to the finish. You must be absolutely exhausted.
I'm knackered. Sorry if the audio's a little bit bad. I am on my phone, but yeah, it was super tough. I mean, I somehow managed to underfuel in qualifying, and then I just had to completely go for it in the race. But Alan put up a great scrap, and so did Casper. It was mega racing, and yeah, we really enjoyed it. I was definitely knackered by the end.
Oh, indeed, and on that, we saw you didn't set a time in qualifying, so with regards to the underfuel, I presume you haven't put enough fuel in the car to actually deliver a lap by the time you've done the warm-up.
Yeah, I managed to slow down on the way out the Porsche curves on my foot. No, it wasn't a slow down actually. I tagged the wall in the Porsche curves, and then on my second lap, as I was coming down to Indianapolis, I took a look at my fuel and it said half a litre, and I was just like, "You are joking me." So yeah, I was gutted, but I was especially gutted because I knew I had good pace coming into the race, but yeah, we just had to go from there and push as much as I could.
Well, indeed, then going into the race, knowing you were starting from P31 on the grid, the last of the pros, and were very early on in the race started to make plenty of headway. In fact, by the end of the first stint, I do believe, already up into the top 5 and battling with the likes of what was the old dudes in cars driver of Daniel Pays. Second stint looked progressive as well, looked as though everything was in harmony.
Yeah, I mean, the VRS setup for Le Mans was fantastic. I mean, the second stint was a little bit sketchy. I made the mistake of taking new rear tyres, which made it really squirrely on the first 2 laps of the stint or so. So I lost a bit of ground there, but the car was just hooked up all race. It was just brilliant. I just managed to keep the pace so consistent, and yeah, I owe it to that that one VRS setup. But yeah, the car was amazing today.
Well, the setup was all nicely hooked in, and indeed driver as well, as you continue to make that progress throughout the race. But as we saw the final couple of stints playing out, it looked as though at first it was going to be a three-way fight between yourself, Alan Lever and Casper Brotner for the win. But soon it came down just to yourself and Alan. I have to ask, given the BMW straight line speed, were you thinking to yourself at any point, why can't I shake off this pesky Lamborghini?
Well, in the second pit stop, I managed to put an extra 5 litres or so in down to a calculation. He got about 4.5 seconds up the road, and I thought, well, that's just it, really. I had fresh front tyres on, the car was really understeery, so I nearly given up, and then once I got the tyres to come in and we caught up, I was like, I should be able to drop him once I get past him, but it just wasn't the case. I wasn't expecting the Lamborghini to have so much straight line towards the BMW, and yeah, he put up an amazing fight, and props to Alan, because it was a super good battle. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, indeed, and we absolutely loved it here in the commentary booth, and I'm sure many tuned loved it, and we got to see two very different machines exchanging blows lap after lap in terms of staying close and fighting through the corners. But going on to that last lap, it looked as though you had that win firmly in your sights, and well, just taking us through in terms of defending, so it looked as though whilst you'd made the move on Alan only a lap before in order to take the lead going into Indianapolis corner, when he tried to do the same move on you in return, you seemed to just know where to put yourself.
Well, I just had to sort of put the car in the middle and say you can either choose the, I don't know, 3/4 of a car's width on the inside, or you can try and do what I did. But I just knew I had to just be confident on the turning and make sure I got his nose out of the rear corner so that I could get across and shut the door. But yeah, it was super close. I really wasn't sure what was going to happen. I just sort of kept my foot in on the way into Indianapolis, hoping that I'd get some clear space on the left-hand side so I could shut the door. And yeah, it was super close. But yeah, again, props to Alan, because it was mega.
Oh, indeed, a phenomenal battle, but in the end, finding your way to stay at one step ahead and coming out of the final corner to see that checker flag waving at Le Mans, it must have made you absolutely pleased.
Oh, I was thrilled, mate. My heart was pounding out of my chest. I was shaking. Sim racing means a lot to me, and I've been doing UKSR in pro class this is my 3rd season now, and you saw last season and came close at the Nürburgring, and then made a mistake and have come close before, and it's been just heartbreak. But yeah, finally managed to hold it together just about today, and yeah, it was amazing. I couldn't believe it. I was just so happy. It was great.
Oh, indeed, and a great result, a heartwarming one for everybody tuned in to see you take your first win in class in your UKSimRacing GT3 League career. And well, with this result now, it moves you to P5 provisionally in the Pro Championship. You're 20 points off of the top, but still have an outside chance of the championship crown and a minimum of the top 3. How are you feeling with two rounds to go?
I think it's going to be really close. I mean, there's definitely the case of that first at the end of the season, and we all know what can happen there. Anyone can go off at any time and end their race. But yeah, I'm not quite familiar. I can't quite remember how the points work out, but I'm hopeful for another top 3. I think I came 3rd last season, so maybe try and go on better. But yeah, like you say, it's an outside chance, so we'll just have to see how we go on in Australia.
Well, we do look forward to seeing how the championship evolves. And with regards to Phillip Island next week, is it a circuit you know well?
Not at all. I think I've done a couple of laps around there in a Porsche Cup car, and that's about it. So I'm definitely going to have to get some practice in this next week or so. I don't think it's going to lend itself to the BMW so much. So yeah, like I say, we'll just have to see how we go on and try and get something hooked up. But yeah, we'll see.
Well, we do look forward to seeing you taking on the Australian circuit at Phillip Island a week from today. But before then, just before we do let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast tonight?
Yeah, my amazing girlfriend for all the support she gives me, even though she still doesn't quite fully understand it yet. Bless her, but yeah, she gives me all the support. It's great, and especially the Newbridge boys as well. They've been super supportive of me on iRacing from the start, and I will give a shout out to VRS for the setup as well, because the car was amazing today. So yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Well, Brandon, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you join me in the interview. Congratulations once again on a sensational drive to victory, and a hard-fought one at that. Still plenty more to come, I suspect, for yourself with 2 rounds to go, and we look forward to seeing all that and more in a week's time down under in Australia. But until then, have a fantastic evening, and well done once again.
Cheers, Paul. Take care.
So here and there from our final interview of the season, the Pro Class winner today, who did it all the way from the back of the field, Brandon Hay for Newbridge Esports. And in qualifying, well, one lap invalidated due to contact with the wall, and then the other one invalidated due to not having enough fuel. It was a nightmare scenario, but still he didn't let it phase him in the fact he came from the back of the field, and by the end of the first stint had already made his way halfway into the Pro Class and was very quickly ascending towards the front. But in a great three-way battle between himself and Leather and what was also at the rival Casper Brotner, soon turned into a two-way fight for the win between Brandon and Alan, where it all came down to fine margins. And on the penultimate lap, Brandon found his way into lead with a daring move around the outside of Indianapolis. And on the final lap, when the same move was almost cast on him by Alan, he managed to position himself well enough to keep the Lamborghini driver at bay and make sure to take his first win, and with it no more heartbreaking, finding that first win in his GT3 League career at UKSimRacing. And need a great story to wrap up the race there in France today. And well, could he potentially find his way into the top 3, or even that outside chance of the championship win coming to fruition? We'll have to wait to see with 2 rounds to go. But the one thing that he does have in his advantage right now, something that's not really known about, I think, to many drivers, is he has 2-0 drop scores against his name, and that means every point he picks up in these final 2 rounds will be maximum, in terms of he will gain every point from those rounds, whereas his rivals, meanwhile, who are not in that situation, they will need to try and beat their previous results, and we could see Brandon jump up through the standings very quickly, starting at Phillip Island. But we'll have to wait to see if that's what happens in reality, or whether it is going to be a battle against the odds, and we'll find out next Sunday. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our interviews for today. You heard firstly from the Elite Class winner of Rhys Saunders for Team Year 1. We'll then hear from the 2 AM drivers, including your AM Class winner today, Satinder Deanser for TQ Simsport Toa, and in Slow and Steady Racing's runner-up in class, Stuart Pearson. And then lastly, we heard from your Pro Class winner only moments ago of Brandon Hay from Newbridge Esports. Congratulations to all 4 of them once again for their performances, and thanks to them for joining me in the interview room. But with that, we now give you an update on the championship standings with 2 rounds to go. As we can see here, starting with the Elite Class, it's Erik Røseth who continues to lead, despite the fact he was not in attendance today, and he is definitely the firm favourite going into the last 2 rounds. 203 points to his name, and with it an advantage now that does stand at what is a grand total of 16 points over Håkon Grebstad. The Indian Motorsport driver not quite able to close the gap enough versus the Racing App Esports AM driver, and therefore it's all going to have to be done in the final 2 rounds, with Rhys Saunders only a further what is 9 points behind now, and indeed still within arm's reach, but there's a long way to go for the Team Year 1 driver. Ryan Davies holds on to P4 ahead of Ryan Moles in their close battle to be just outside the podium places, with a 4-point advantage over Ryan Walker for Satellite Racing, and keep your eyes on him. He continues to demonstrate that he can stay within the fight, and he could yet finish in the top 5 when all is said and done. With Joe Newman as well, launching himself back into P7 with that stellar qualifying lap for Empire Motorsport, and also that 3rd spot on the elite podium come the end of the race. And then Martin Tillin only a further 5 points behind. We definitely do have what is a 5-way fight to be inside the P4, P5 places between Davies, Moles, Walker, Newman and Tillin. And then we have a sizable gap to Thomas Asphaug, P9 net, further 30 points behind. And then Sam Sherwood rounding off your top 10 for ProTech Motorsport. P11 best of the rest is Peter Cox, still looking to get his way back into the top 10 ahead of Mark Davison, with Damien Lobbett and Cy Anthony for Symphony Esports there, P13, P14. And then we have Nathan Scott, who completes the top 15, ahead of Alex Hill, Sam Congreve and Andy Jones. We then come on to the pro class, and here we can see Casper Tunstead, currently your championship leader, albeit only by result count back. And with Aaron McGregor's performances today, it is getting ever closer at the top. But the key point as well is that Matt Strand, Darren Sharples and Brandon Hay, they're all still within arm's reach. It's 20 points that separate the top 5, and this is a championship battle that could go any which way with two rounds remaining, and every twist and turn is going to be heartfelt for all of the drivers. Also, don't forget, Casper Brotner is only a further point behind. He's still within mathematical reach as well, and he could play a factor into this. So the old dudes in cars driver right now really drawing the line above his teammate Daniel Pace in terms of the 6 eligible drivers for the championship crown. And Daniel Pace has been showing some great pace over the course of the season, and in P7 he's still looking to try and fight his way into the top 5 before all is said and done. And could he yet cause some of our championship battlos to fall out of contention for a great result of his own? Well, he'll need a great result to keep Chris Kirtland from Downforce Racing behind him, as a further 4 points behind, with Alexander Truman McCalson and Alan Lever completing the top 10, and even then 4 points between the pair of them. Then we do have a sizable 16-point gap to Bevan Thompson in P11, with the priority followed up by Mark Johnson. And then we do have Kerry Corcoran, Richard Jones and Chris Constable complete your top 15, with Giles Phillips P16 there. And we haven't seen him on circuit for the last couple of rounds, but he's ahead of Rob Armstrong, with Aaron Beaver, Lewis Payne and Rydia Witzland completing the top 20. And then to round out the pro stands, it's Ian Manners ahead of Martin Fernie, with John Watt, Joe McManus and Aaron Herbert completing the class positions down to P25. We then come on to the AM Class Drivers' Championship. And here we can see, well, in fact, we can see it is Simon Andre Livingston who leads the way by 179 points to 176 for Stein Arsani, and the 2 RaceLab Esports AM drivers right now trying to make it a 1-2 in the championship class, but they also do have their own rivalry. Albeit Livingston not in attendance today, and Stein Arsani, with that unfortunate late race incident, cost him some major points, so therefore Arsani not able to capitalise on the absence of his sister team rival, but instead still sits there in P2 and only has 4 points behind him, Jack Wyborn, who hasn't gained any points either, so therefore it still is a full-lettered fight for what is the top step between them, but also Satinder Deensa, who moves into P4, 2 points clear of Stuart Pearson, and well, that top 5 right now only separated by 16 points, and it could go any way in 2 rounds remaining. Neil Smith, P6 on 152 points. He's still arguably just within reach of the top, but I think right now we'll be playing more of a battle for what will be the top 5, and definitely the top 3 potentially, as the disaster-prone racing driver only holds a 2-point advantage over Thomas Barger, who continues to gain great points as the season goes on. And it's James Connolly, Matt Edmondson and Marvin Cruz who complete your top 10 with a 9-point advantage over Stephen Parker Hamilton, the TPA racing driver for Cruz from Bike Racing. Then in P12, it's Paul Joseph Cliffs for Olympus Esports with another good set of points on the board, and he's looking for a top 10 finish before this season is done and dusted, with John Doe with their P13 ahead of Sean Gaffney and Sander Verstappen completing the top 15. Then we do have BJ Alvarez P16 ahead of Cy Hartley, with the standings being rounded out by Ricky Pink, Matt Maddox and Frank Klein. And lastly, coming on to the team standings top 30 here, we can see that right now at the very top on 389 points, and with a 50-point advantage, which is not unassailable, but it definitely shows they're now starting to form control of this championship crown. RaceLab Esports AM over ProTech Motorsport. Behind ProTech Motorsport by a further 17 points, it's Tiki Simsport Kimi, and then UK Sim Racing Price in P4 on 298 points. Well, they're trying to hold on to that P4 ahead of Old Dudes in Cars, with Old Dudes in Cars losing ground today to the UK Sim Racing team. P6 is TPA Racing, who hold on to 287 points, 1 clear of RaceLab Esports AM2, with Slow and Steady Racing moving into P8 and continue to gain great ground as a result of today, and now move inside the top 10 and hold it firmly for the first time at a UK Sim Racing Clark and UK Sim Racing Moss. But only 2 points outside the top 10 in P11 is Tiki Sim Sport Tower, with Downforce Racing at P12 ahead of Empire Motorsport, and then we do have Ignium Motorsport in P14, falling down there to their lowest place in the championship standings thus far this season, but still 6 points clear of Peak Sim Racing, with them Team Year 1 Racing Lab Esports and 3, Disaster Prime Racing, Satellite Racing, and Symphony Esports completing your top 20. P21, it's Bike Racing. They're knocking on the door of the top 20 right now and could be there as the end of the next round. But then it's Olympus Esports had a Simulation Motorsport with Philips GP and Team Norway Racing completing at the 25th run standings. And then we do have in our final 5 positions to the top 30, Team Sim Racing Chicago ahead of Aspire Racing Team, ProTech Academy, 9 Sheets at Autosport, and 52 Racing. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show and you want to know more about the UK sim racing community, perhaps you're sat there right now thinking that you want to be on the grid for an upcoming season of racing at UK Sim Racing, or you just want to know more about what we do on the virtual racing platforms available, well, you can find out all about that and more at our official website. You saw it earlier in the broadcast today, and that is uksimracing.co.uk. Alternatively, if you're a bit more of a social media person, you can always follow us on Twitter, and the best place to do so is at twitter.com/UK_simracing_ when it comes to social media. There's no doubt about that. We can follow all the latest trials, tribulations, and escapades of the official UK Sim Racing esports teams. And also, we'd like to take this moment to say a big thank you to our affiliates, which do include Swilly Omeda Sim Racing Coaching, and indeed Swilly Omeda, the creator of the Motor Racing Checklist. His sim racing coaching can help take your sim racing trying to the next level. Whether you're looking to gain a 10th, improve your approach to the racing line, or develop your consistency, Swilly Omeda has a coaching course to meet your needs. Plus, with Swilly being a multi-time champion of official iRacing series, including the 2021 PSCC, you know you're receiving coaching from the very best in the industry. We also have Race Anywhere, the provider of curated sim racing equipment, and to only stock products that represent excellent value for the sim racing community. Demon Tweaks, the provider of the most complete and innovative motorsport product range available worldwide, so no matter what your level of discipline, Demon Tweaks could help drive you to realise your motorsport ambitions. SimLab, the leading manufacturer of high-quality sim racing-related hardware. As a proud partner of Mercedes Entrepreneurs Esports, SimLab aims to enhance virtual racing experiences with uncompromising solutions that push the boundaries of esports and make them the go-to brand for quality sim racing rigs. Amazon, the company trying to be the Earth's most customer-centric company, the Earth's best employer, and the Earth's safest place to work for the provision of concepts pioneered by Amazon, which include but are not limited to one-click shopping, Fire tablets, and Fire TV. And lastly, SRC Driver Academy, a division of Sim Racing Community. Elevate your sim racing skills with SRC Driver Academy. Their team of experienced professionals is dedicated to helping you reach your full potential without compromising on quality. But why choose SRC? Put it simply, affordable, quality coaching. They have experienced coaches who provide valuable insights on the competitive edge and make high-quality coaching accessible to all at an affordable cost tailored to your needs and goals. You can learn race strategies, precision driving, and much more, and they offer virtual coaching sessions at nearly all hours of the day, every day, ensuring flexibility for all. But if you want to learn more, join SLC Driver Academy today and unlock your true sim racing potential. Do visit their website to learn all about the service and accelerate your sim racing career. But now, ladies and gentlemen, we turn our attention to the penultimate round in a week's time on Sunday, the 27th of August 2023. It's round 8 of 9, and the Phillip Island circuit will play host to our drivers. Less known outside of the shores of Australia, it is a circuit that's full of sweeping corners and extended straights, and with it is a circuit that will definitely keep our drivers on their toes. But with all 3 Drivers' Championships still wide open, particularly in the Pro and the Am class, could we see a turn in the results that will set us up for a thrilling season finale at Bathurst? I definitely reckon we will. But until then, we have been UK Sim Racing. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.